Night. Little Sky ran away from home for several days, endured hunger and cold, and was still not sick. It is true that the inhuman race has a good genetic foundation, but he also needs rest, so he fell asleep as soon as he touched the warm and soft bed. Caught. Bucky came to the roof of his own residential building. Against the cold wind, looking at one eye. That's right, it is Mr. Nick Fury, the future king of secret agents. Mr. Stark entrusted me to pass this information on to you, and it will be destroyed after reading it. It's not that Nick Fury is willing to condescend to run errands. Why is he also a level 7 agent, the elite force of S.H.I.E.L.D.? But because he is a level 7 agent and Pierce's man, and has a high level of confidentiality, Howard sent him to run errands. Because the document that Nick Fury handed over to Bucky was covered in black bars one after another covering the handwriting, not even a complete sentence. You guess. How can this be used for burning after reading, and it is no problem to post it directly on the telephone pole after reading? It seems that another high-level person in charge of this incident thought that the matter of Sky's life experience was too important, so even the top-secret files of S.H.I.E.L.D. only recorded it like this. Instead, Howard used it to further confuse Alexander Pierce. Of course, Bucky, who had never thought about it at all, knew nothing about it. Just relieved, Howard and Nick Fury will definitely keep it secret, and no one will notice Sky's own particularity for the time being, and will only notice her because of himself. Watching off the future king of secret agents, he really disappeared into the night, and Bucky didn't go home either. The night is still long, and I don't want to sleep, so I might as well do something. Brooklyn, 99 Police Department. Today's police station, the office model is still too backward. Bucky modified the camera all the way to avoid the sight of the police, sneaked into the police station without a trace, and found the file room, but was disappointed. In this day and age, 586, that is, the first generation of Pentium, has not yet been released. Generally, 1 in 386 are used, and typewriters are still used in some remote areas. There are not even 2 or 3 computers in a police station, and the hard disk capacity of hundreds of megabytes is outrageous, and there is not much room for it. Most of the information is stored in paper. Here too, databases are boxes of paper files in the archives. Bucky's idea of connecting to the police's criminal database was completely defeated, and the scanned records one by one would have to be obtained forever. However, although the way to find the files of criminals is no longer feasible, if you want to combat crimes and collect experience and collect tasks, you can also monitor the police radio station and listen to real-time crime information. System. Made and implanted a military tech prosthetic ear monitor type I. System information. Consume 30 common item components, 25 excellent item components, 15 excellent quick crack components, 5 rare quick crack components, and make military technology prosthetic ear monitor type I. Prosthetic ear monitoring type I. Strength and hearing, can accept various long and short wave electromagnetic signals. The built-in decoder automatically decodes and converts to audio, and can set the receiving frequency band by itself. Strengthen the balance ability and resist strong noise. Implanted in both ears. There was a strange feeling in the ear, as if it was disappearing a little bit, and it seemed to be changing a little bit. The ear didn't seem to be my own, but it was still my own. After the implantation was completed, Bucky instantly felt like when the Superman next door had just awakened his super hearing. Although it was not that exaggerated, it also enriched countless noisy and chaotic, but very clear voices. After a short time to get used to it, the prosthetic body is also connected to the network access cabin, so that after connecting to Bucky's brain, it automatically adjusts to the extent that Bucky can adapt. The next step is to find a police radio station. Bucky finds the parking lot, turns off the cameras, pries open a patrol car, and hacks into the police radio inside. Calls on 5th Avenue, shooting. Shooting on 6th Street, police support needed. There was a robbery at the Pearson Bank, and all the surrounding police forces were ordered to support. Back in his car, the crime report on the police radio kept ringing in his ears, which formed a great contrast with the peaceful surroundings, which made Bucky nod repeatedly. This is happy America, shootouts every day. And Bucky also scanned the detailed maps of New York streets in the police station, and the prosthetic eye automatically recognized the surrounding terrain and matched the map. The map in the field of vision can already be displayed normally, and it can also automatically navigate to the location according to its own position. So, happy hour begins. Bucky grinned silently, stomped on the accelerator, and the car sped away. Good morning. This is Johnny. Wake up, little sleeper. I'm going to get up now. Early in the morning, Bucky knocked on the door of Little Sky's bedroom, only to hear a panicked scream from inside, as if Bucky had knocked not with his fingers but with an axe. One can imagine how she would be woken up if she slept late in the past. Bucky didn't open the door, didn't go into comfort. Sometimes, you don't need to remind others that you are fine, it will only remind her how important she is. It's better to give her a little space and let her discover and get used to it by herself. Bucky just walks off to the kitchen and prepares a bacon omelet. Humming a ditty, he was really in a good mood. Unlike yesterday during the day, where he only got 2 money grabbers all day long, with the assistance of the police radio last night, Bucky did 3 missions. Well, Bucky was very excited at the beginning, looking for those gun battles, robbing banks, and washing powder cellars. After 3 rounds in a row, they were all criminals in groups of 7 or 8 people, or even a dozen or so people. Bucky has only one skill, and the cooldown time is 15 seconds. The rookie method, hacking, division, kicking. Every time you get 2 or 3 people, you will definitely be discovered by the other party, either by the police taking advantage of the situation, or directly the tree fell in the hose and scattered, and a policeman was shot during this period. And Bucky didn't want to take out the anti-material sniper rifle and directly turn the crime scene into an anti-human massacre scene. I had no choice but to let it go. Knowing that he couldn't be in a hurry, Bucky changed his strategy and went for a crime that could be easily subdued by 1 or 2 people robbing. Although he only completed 3 missions afterwards, he also gained more than 600 experience points, expertise proficiency, and 3 ordinary boxes with the heads he had brushed a few times before. Although he didn't gain much, Bucky was only at level 2, and the experience points needed to upgrade the first few levels were not much. After doing this 2 or 3 times, he would be able to advance to another level. How about taking you out to play today? Is there anything you want to go? Little Sky has reached the age of going to school, but the extra subsidy for going to school was naturally cheated by the foster family, who forged a school certificate for Little Sky, and then locked her up at home. But these will be handled by the Child Protection Agency personnel sent by S.H.I.E.L.D., and Bucky can just wait for the results. Now it's all about taking care of Little Sky's life. Bucky thought he had to find a nanny for the little guy. But don't be in a hurry, I'm in a good mood today, let's take her out for a walk first. Manhattan. Christmas is coming and the festive spirit is everywhere. Central Park. On the bench, wearing new clothes, the well-dressed Little Sky was licking a chocolate sundae beautifully. Beside him were big bags and Bucky, who turned into a salted fish. Women shopping is definitely an innate talent. Although he didn't sleep the whole night before, he had a systematic sleep, and he was resurrected with full blood and full state just as soon as his eyes went dark. However, being led shopping by Little Sky exhausted his physical strength, and he felt as if there was no one else. Hey. Little Sky scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. It was the first time in his life that he experienced the pleasure of shopping, and he was also a little worried that Bucky would be unhappy. But seeing that Bucky was just complaining habitually, he felt relieved. Who cares? Uncle, I think, even if it's only for 1 day, I'm satisfied with this kind of life. Little thing, it doesn't matter if you become a chubby girl, but don't become Wen Ching. Bucky is still looking forward to the little guy with fear, fearing that all of this is not reality. Maybe they will all disappear when he wakes up. There is nothing to persuade, just leave it to time. He just restored Little Sky's healthy and lustrous hair again, and messed it up again. I hate it. Uncle Smelly. Little Sky's face was puffed up with anger, his eyes rolled, and the little spoon dug a spoonful of sundae, and flew towards Bucky's face. But, precisely, flew into Bucky's mouth. Very good, you are filial. One big and one small were laughing and laughing, but Bucky was taken aback suddenly. He saw a family of 4, also with big and small bags, walking towards him. This is a husband and wife with 2 children. The older boy is about the same size as Sky, and the beautiful wife is holding a cute little girl who is 3 or 4 years old. And the husband of the head of the family, with a sturdy figure and a resolute and even stern face, can soften when facing his wife and children, with a strong and tender heart. The reason why Bucky noticed them was that the other party also noticed him. That man and Bucky both noticed each other subconsciously, and as soon as their eyes crossed, they both frowned slightly. The man opposite was not simple. People who have been on the battlefield have different eyes, steps, and momentum. In the memory of the Winter Soldier, I have seen too many people like this. This man is a veteran who survived many battles. He has more than one life in his hands. Presumably in the eyes of the other party, Bucky is also the same kind. However, the veterans of the beautiful country can be seen everywhere. Although this one is a bit powerful, it is not worthy of Bucky's attention. just nodded slightly, and the other party also nodded slightly. However, the two sides did not cross each other. The veteran's wife and children seemed to be tired, so the family of four sat on a bench not far from Bucky's side to rest. The veteran seems to be immersed in the happiness of a happy family. But Bucky, who killed someone not long ago, was still fighting for justice last night, and he had the fighting instinct of the Winter Soldier in his body, but he was not asleep. He always felt that something was wrong, as if something was going to happen. Is it for himself? In other words, this veteran who looks really photogenic and has a lot of characteristics, is it a well-known figure? Going out for a walk, I picked up Bucky, a wild shockwave girl, and felt that I couldn't have such a fluke idea. Sky, let's go, don't you want to watch Terminator? Let's watch Terminator 2. Really? Okay. Ouch, little Sky was clapping her hands and applauding, but she felt a force coming from him. The uncle hugged her lightly with one arm like the little sister she envied, which made her surprised and moved. He gnawed at Bucky's face. Bucky didn't care that the little guy took advantage of him, but just took a deep look at the veteran. The veteran suddenly felt something, but only saw Bucky holding the little loli in one hand and the back of a big bag in the other. Bucky couldn't be sure who had the problem, so if he rushed over rashly, it might implicate them instead, and if it was a veteran's problem, it would also implicate little Sky. It's better to settle the little guy first, and then come back to check the situation after making sure it's not a problem on his side. But right now, it seems to be walking, but the actual pace is very fast. Bucky, who walked more than 10 meters away, suddenly turned around. Then I saw a royal blue Chevrolet muscle car break into the bare lawn, and even drove towards the family of four with full power. Bob basically thought that there were more possibilities on his side, but he didn't expect it to be the problem over there. However, this was not the time to think about who it was. Chevrolet rushed over frantically. Although the veteran had already noticed, his body was a little dull. When he really realized, he wanted to protect his wife and children. Avoid it, it's obviously too late. Zilla. Boom. But at this moment, an electric arc erupted from the front cover of the Chevrolet engine, followed by a puff of black smoke. The car lost power and just rushed forward by inertia. And because of the billowing black smoke, the driver subconsciously stepped on the brakes, and the car stopped not far from the veteran's family of four. It was Bucky who made the decisive move and directly locked the car, causing an electromagnetic short circuit. At this time, little Sky in Bucky's arms, and the veteran's wife and children, screamed. It's just that the veteran's wife and children were frightened, and little Sky ran faster because Bucky was suddenly in her arms. The incident happened suddenly, and the veteran also reacted, and hurriedly dragged his wife and children to escape. However, at this time the people in the car also got off. It's four Latino gangsters with tattoos on their faces and hands, all gaudy, and Uzis in their hands. Bang bang bang. Choo choo choo. However, after they got out of the car, without saying a word, they raised their guns at the veteran's family, but they didn't fire first. Instead, he ran far away with little Sky in his arms, but turned his head at the same time, locked the four of them as targets, pulled out the Makarov pistol on his lower back, and stretched his arms behind his back. Bucky fired continuously based on feeling. It's just a pity that even Bucky shot blindly without aiming at all, and in terms of accuracy, it was just luck that he shot one of them in the shoulder and the other in the thigh. There were still two other gangsters who pulled the trigger on the family of four. Do not. The veteran could only try his best to protect his family with his body, but he still couldn't protect his son who ran away in panic. The two father and son were splashed with blood, and fell in a pool of blood instantly. When Bucky saw this, a surge of anger rushed to his forehead instantly, and he killed people like this in front of Lao Su. To die. Boom. Bucky turned around abruptly, pointing his pistol, and the two gang members shot their heads. Bucky turned to put little Sky on his back, and while rushing over, he felt even more angry. Hateful. It was because of my own worry that the innocent child fell into a pool of blood. Bucky doesn't regret his actions. He was protecting little Sky, and things happened for a reason, and the goals of the gang members were very clear. If he was asked to choose again, he would still protect little Sky first, and prevent her from being implicated by the veteran's family. But seeing innocent children lying in a pool of blood, I still get angry. Uncle. You. Little Sky behind Bucky was quite frightened, and at least half of the reason was that he was on Bucky's back, almost using the Noah piece of red and white. Don't be afraid, it's all right. Bucky didn't have time to do more comfort, but ran to the first two gang members who were shot and fell to the ground but survived, and kicked them unconscious with his kicks. Cough cough cough. Son. The veteran was actually extremely strong and tenacious. He was shot in the back 3 times, but he was still conscious, looking at his son who was lying in a pool of blood with bloodshot eyes. Bucky also hurried over, picked up the boy who was about the same age as little Sky, and reached out to touch his neck. His pulse was gone. But it's not time to give up. In an instant, an electric arc flashed across the body of the little boy in Bucky's arms, causing his body to twitch instantly. Things that can kill people can sometimes save lives. Although the electromagnetic short circuit skill is not a pacemaker, but in this situation, the child has lost too much blood and has a cardiac arrest, so he can only be treated as a living doctor. Son. What are you doing? The veteran was still crawling hard, and when he saw this, he couldn't help roaring like a wounded beast. But Bucky ignored him, just felt the little boy's artery. After the first electric shock, there was still no pulse. But it doesn't matter, the electromagnetic short circuit lasts for 3 seconds, that is, it will jump 3 times for damage. And the second time. The third time. Just after the third electric shock, Bucky, who still couldn't feel his pulse, looked a little sad, but then felt a weak vibration from his fingers, and then another. Bucky was ecstatic in an instant, and following the incitement of red and blue neon blocks in his hand, he conjured up a Furkong type I treatment injection and stuck it on the child's chest. Let go of my son. At this time, the veteran finally crawled to Bucky's side, and when he was about to pounce on Bucky like a wolf, he saw his son in the other's arms, breathing again. He's fine for now, but, your wife. Sorry. Bucky handed over the child in his arms to the veteran, but apologized with a gloomy expression. Really? Maria? No. No. The veteran, who was suddenly ecstatic just now, but saw Bucky's expression, couldn't help but turned around, only to find that his wife was also lying in a pool of blood, and there was blood oozing around her head, while his little daughter didn't cry. Not making trouble, but she was already frightened, and sat beside her mother in a daze. Only then did the veteran remember that his wife in his arms had not moved. When he was struggling to climb towards his son, his wife slipped from his arms and fell to the ground. Unexpectedly, this wife is also called Maria. The man did not flick his tears lightly. When Bucky saw the old soldier's eyes wide open, 2 lines of pale red tears fell down, he couldn't help feeling a burst of sympathy. Save her. Please save her. But the boy was able to pull back from the death line because he still had his last breath, and he also had enough luck. The veteran's wife, there's really nothing Bucky can do. The veteran crawled back to his wife's side, put his arms around his wife's bloody head, looked at Bucky with the last hope in despair. However, Bucky shook his head and said in despair, I'm sorry, your wife has. Your child still needs treatment, and it's not safe here. Bucky walked over and gave the veteran a therapeutic injection. He was also shot 3 times and was bleeding profusely. His willpower was really strong. The old soldier was silent for a while, then looked at the 4 gangsters who fell on the ground. His expression suddenly became ferocious like a ghost. As his injury eased and his body developed strength, he rushed over without hesitation. Take care of your children, your 2 children. Bucky stopped the veteran and stared straight into his almost crazy eyes. Me. Lisa, Frank. The veteran struggled constantly, and finally turned from fury to sadness. He walked to his little daughter, picked her up, and walked to his son. Agent Fury. I need a quick response team, the kind that night. How'd I know who I killed? Hey, it's not my business. I just happened to meet, in the southeast of Central Park Jow. In short, as soon as possible, if there is a survivor, don't let the police take it away. Before Bucky called, he thought that he couldn't find a certain big money with tens of millions of business every minute. Anyway, he ordered others to do it, so when Nick Fury gave him his ID card, he almost asked for his phone number. You know Fury? Nick Fury. But when he hung up the phone, he heard the veteran's hoarse voice asking. Yeah. You know him too? Johnny Lind, what's your name? Frank Castle. I went, and it turned out, it really was him. Bucky said. Why did he have a vague sense of déjà vu about this matter, but he couldn't remember it for a while. This is indeed the well-known street anti-hero, the Punisher Frank Castor, whom he had talked about before. Bucky knew that Frank was killed by gang members precisely because of his wife and children. Some gang members exchanged fire, some intentionally harmed, some conspired against him, and some were the whole family including his father, but all his wives and children died. Only then became the Punisher who used violence to control violence. You are guilty, you will die. It's just that he didn't expect that it happened at this time, and he met him, but he couldn't completely change his fate. The world is impermanent. although it was because of Bucky's appearance that Frank saved a pair of children. But Bucky, who couldn't keep Frank's wife and felt that he couldn't completely change Frank's fate, suddenly felt powerless. If I become stronger and can send that carload of people to the sky when I find out the situation, such a human tragedy will never happen. Witnessing all this with his own eyes, and almost letting Frank's son's life slip through his fingers, Bucky, feeling the powerlessness, now hopes that he can become stronger. So what if the Punisher never shows up again? Bucky would rather see a happy family of 4 than a dark antihero. After a while, there was a sound of a car engine, but no siren. S.H.I.E.L.D. arrives before the police wash the grounds. Bucky gritted his teeth for a while. He took care of this matter himself, and he wanted to see who troubled Frank. Little guy, be scared. I'm sorry to let you encounter such a thing. Bucky didn't care about the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who led the team, that is, Phil Coulson, who had seen a hairline crisis before reaching middle age. Instead, he softly comforted his arms, hugging his little Sky tightly like a koala cub. Such a scene, such an experience, frightened not only Frank Castor's little daughter, but also the little guy in himself. No, don't be afraid. Uncle, I'm fine. Little Sky was still shaking her young body, but somehow she thought of something, raised her head, and tried her best with tears in her eyes. How can you not be afraid? This is the first time I have encountered such a situation. I haven't eaten for 3 days. Are you some perverted serial killer? Wow. Uncle Smelly, I'm so scared. Woohoo, it's all blood. There are dead people. Bucky didn't intentionally provoke little Sky. Well, it was a bit intentional, but in this situation, it's obviously better to let it out if you hold it in your heart. Okay, it's okay, I'm here. Bucky continued to comfort softly, and sighed in his heart. Ever since this little guy met him, ever since he knew she was Sky, she would inevitably encounter this situation, sooner or later. It's just that, in the past, she didn't have this experience until she was an adult, but now it's so much earlier. Although it wasn't caused by Bucky, he still feels a little bit sorry. Mr. Custer, you'd better go to the hospital first. Just leave these people to us. Please rest assured that we will interrogate them carefully. No, I want to know who ordered it. You call Nick Fury and I'll tell him. On the other side, 2 subs from S.H.I.E.L.D. came to deal with the corpses and the 2 gang members who were still alive, and some stopped the late police and kept them isolated on the periphery. The hairline brother who led the team stopped him and insisted on following him for interrogation. No, it was Frank Castor who wanted to wake up the 2 gangsters immediately and torture them. Bucky didn't seem to be in charge at first. It's not that he didn't want good people to do it to the end. On the contrary, it was just a chance encounter, so it's best to keep such a distance. Otherwise, it would be bad for Hydra to think that Frank had something to do with him, or that he really helped him and had something to do with him. However, I can't stand the fact that Brother Hairline is familiar with me. I just met him once. This time I always ask myself for help with the eyes of an old man. Bucky had no choice but to go over, gently hugged the dazed little Lisa next to Frank, handed it to Frank, let him catch it subconsciously, and said in a deep voice. Let's take care of the children first, and your wife's funeral needs to be arranged. Although I'm not qualified to persuade you, I know that no one can understand your anger and pain, but you still have to hold back. For your sake, child, restrain yourself. Bucky's feeling is that there is a violent beast named Angry living in Frank's heart, but on weekdays, his family has become the strongest cage, sealing this fierce beast firmly. But in this encounter, the cage called family was broken, and the sleeping beast had awakened. I see. The look in Frank's eyes kept changing. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed, put his arms around his daughter, and went to the S.H.I.E.L.D. car. There was his son, a family of 3, going to the S.H.I.E.L.D. hospital. Brother Hairline came over with a nice smile on his face. Sir, thank you for your help. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even know how to persuade him. Come on, you guy. You are obviously very curious about me, because my good friend is your idol. Bucky didn't feel very happy about the implicit admiration of Brother Hairline, knowing that he was thinking otherwise. There are people. It's nothing, Agent Coulson, right? I didn't have a good chat last time, but I think we can only talk next time. Leave a phone call? But this is also a celebrity, the MCU's most visible supporting role, almost catching up with Hawkeye, and Bucky also wants to deepen his connection with him. Good. Brother Hairline nodded hurriedly. If you can keep in touch with your idol's follower, you will have the opportunity to find out the secret of the idol. Bucky, who can guess what this guy is thinking, has the urge to send this guy to Antarctica now. Let him find his old popsicle friend, and can't find the urge not to come back. Then let's go first. The person was called by Bucky, and Bucky really had nothing to say. It was just an unexpected incident, and after a few words of explanation, Bucky left with little Sky in his arms. Shall I send someone to take you back? No, you guys are busy. If you need help, please contact me, or if there is any progress in this matter. What's the situation with that person? Please let me know. Sure. Although there is no official status in S.H.I.E.L.D., Brother Hairline also knows that this guy has a close relationship with Howard Stark, and it doesn't affect their work. It's just to follow up the follow-up information. This convenience can still be given, yes, and he also plans to give it in person, and then he can inquire about the situation of the idol by the way. Before Bucky left the scene, he received a call from Nick Fury. I heard about it. It turned out to be Frank. Thank you for your help. It should be, but it's a pity. Are you familiar with him? After dealing with Nick Fury for a few more words, I happened to walk to the periphery, where the yellow police tape was pulled up by the police. Helping Bucky pull up the vigilance belt was a young and beautiful woman in her early 20s with reddish-brown perm hair and long legs who looked more like a model than a patrolman. The young policewoman saw that Bucky was carrying the big bags and small bags he had picked up, and was holding a little girl in his arms. On the other side of the scene, those guys from unknown departments who stopped the police also drove away. She rolled her eyes, before the patrol instructor, who called her and followed the team came to call her. She quickly asked Bucky, "Sir, do you need help?" Bucky sized up the pretty young policewoman who was probably a rookie, nodded and said, "Okay, thank you." Asking the policewoman to help carry a few bags, the policewoman said hello to her instructor, and then followed Bucky. After taking 2 steps, the policewoman continued to talk. "Sir, I'm Constable Beckett. May I know your name? You can call me Johnny. Mr. Johnny, can you tell me what happened just now?" Sure enough, I didn't fall in love with my brother's prosperous beauty. Bucky was a little funny, but his heart moved when he heard the policewoman's jerky cliché. Was it by chance again, or was there some other purpose? The young and beautiful policewoman kept talking for a long time, but still only knew that Bucky's name was Johnny. Instead, she was tricked out by Bucky. Her name was Kate Beckett. She was a trainee patrol officer who had just passed the police academy assessment. She also left Bucky her contact information, and she didn't know how upset she would be afterwards. And this made Bucky even more certain that this is not just the MCU universe. Because of the name, he just knew it. This is the lead female detective Kate Beckett from the American drama, The Detective of the Spiritual Book, that I watched before time travel. But this is just an episode. Bucky doesn't have much interest in getting to know this rookie policewoman right now. By the time her plot is triggered, the streets will already be full of people with superpowers, and the world doesn't know what will become of it. In a word, let it be. Originally, for this shopping, Bucky wanted to give little Sky a Christmas that really belonged to her. Of course, the little guy had Christmas before, but he was locked in the basement, listening to the laughter above. It's also fortunate that the little guy had the courage to run away from home, otherwise he would have endured it all the time, and felt that he would be able to compare with a certain bitch mercenary and his wife in the future. However, when encountering that kind of thing before, the atmosphere was lost. The little guy drank milk and went to bed early. Bucky checked the system. System information. Defeat 4 armed criminals, save 3 victims, complete daily rewards, reward 3 experience points, random item box, green excellent, *800. To trigger the series of missions, Origin of the Punisher, you need to continue to contact the key figure Frank Custer to trigger the next mission. Although it was not perfect, the system still gave rewards, and it was not bad. It is also reasonable to trigger the Punisher's origin mission. Originally, because Bucky failed to save everyone, there was an evil fire in his heart that he had nowhere to vent. Now I saw the first random box of the elite level. If I saved all of them, it should be blue and rare. I feel that I lost 100 million, and the fire will be even greater. But for this matter, Bucky has no specific spoiler position, because he doesn't know which Punisher this is, because he has seen 3 versions of the movie and 1 version of the TV series, and each plot is different. Let's wait until Agent Coulson finds out some information. Now open the box first. System information. Open a random item box and get subcutaneous armor 1. Subcutaneous armor, green and excellent. The bionic epidermis and bulletproof dermis covering the whole body replace the original skin system, which greatly enhances the protection, and can adjust the sensitivity and pain of skin touch by itself, armor plus 50. It has caused a serious impact on the protective gear market. Bucky's mood improved a lot in an instant. This reward is really good. This is exactly what I need most, well, what I want most, to improve my safety factor. The system sets that for every 10 points of armor, 1 point of damage will be reduced. In this world, ordinary weapons, such as 9mm pistols, can deal about 10 points of damage. Armor will exceed 100 points. In the future, not only can the steel unicorn arm block bullets, but it can block bullets with shame. If he encounters Frank's situation again, Bucky will go straight to him with Little Sky on his back. Bucky silently said, "Implant the prosthetic body," and red and blue neon blocks flashed all over his body. The feeling this time is even more wonderful. It's not strange, but wonderful, because it feels like the skin of the whole body is being replaced little by little, and at the same time, there is also a touch, like using a soft brush to gently brush your skin, or gently brushing your skin with silk. Caress. Not long after the implantation was completed, Bucky felt as if he had just taken a shower. The pores all over his body were relaxed and breathable. The touch became more sensitive, but it could also be adjusted to make it dull. And stretching out the left arm to look, the left arm is also covered with a layer of fake bionic skin. The only difference from the right arm is that it is slightly thicker than the right arm. And this layer of skin is also tactile. After Bucky turned his left arm into a systematic prosthetic body and connected it with flesh and nerves, his left arm also gained a real sense of touch. It won't make people mistakenly think that I never use my right hand. This is actually a real Keelin arm. After all, Bucky is very satisfied with this lottery draw. When watching movies and dramas before crossing, he thought the steel unicorn arm was cool, but he really became the Winter Soldier, but he didn't want people to stare at his unicorn all the time. Arm look, don't want this to become your own label. And with the experience points gained this time, Bucky also upgraded again. System information. The experience value is sufficient and has been upgraded. Character level 3. Experience value 283,000. Get 1 free attribute point. Gain 1 free feat point. System. Attribute points plus intelligence, expertise points plus vulnerability expert. System information. Add points completed. Character. James Buchanan Barnes. Grade 3 Flesh 8, Movement 7, Annihilation 7, Brawl 7. Reaction 8, Pistol 7, Assault 7, Sword 7, Technology 4, Engineering 1, Crafting 3. Intelligence 8, Intrusion Protocol 2, Quick Crack 1. Calm 11, Stealth 7, Cold Blood 2, HP, 200/200ths. Stamina. 150/150ths, added the Quick Cracking Specialty Talent, Vulnerability Expert. Vulnerability Expert. Unlocks the crafting specification for the Blue Rare Quick Crack plugin. The upgrade attribute points are directly added to the intelligence, and the rare level Quick Crack plugin is unlocked, so that the 2 plugins of target positioning and electromagnetic short circuit can be upgraded. However, to make an excellent green plugin, you need the purple epic component, and the rare blue plugin needs the orange legendary component, so outrageous that Bucky wants to review the advanced cursing postures in 30 languages that he has mastered. Unlocking is easy, but materials are difficult to obtain. Are you going to rub Howard again? But at the current level of technology, what Howard provided to himself before is already the most advanced computer originals, and those components cannot be dismantled from the Orange Legend. Either wait for the new CPU from the toothpaste factory, or you can only think about Howard's black technology. Bucky thought, Howard, the great inventor, has many inventions beyond the times. For example, the huge arc reactor in the Stark Industrial Park is the prototype of the mini reactor on Iron Man's chest. And is it really that Howard is limited by the current level of technology, so he can't miniaturize it? Anton Vanke, the hairy bear scientist who developed the reactor with Howard, seemed to have the ambition to miniaturize it, and was expelled from the beautiful country by Howard. In some versions, Anton Vanke really succeeded in miniaturizing it, and also became the supervillain, Crimson Mecha, or second-generation Whiplash. Perhaps this is out of Howard's caution? Can you do something about it? Uncle, I can't sleep. How did your arm change back? Bucky, who was deep in thought, was called back to his senses by Little Sky's timid voice, and saw the little guy in pajamas, with fine beads of sweat on his forehead, and a look of fear in his eyes, obviously having a nightmare. Bucky felt a little sorry, but he didn't show it. He just picked up the little guy and said with a smile, "Oh, someone did it for me before. It's easy to fall asleep. I'll give you the best way to deal with insomnia. Any solution? Stay up late. As long as you stay up late, you don't have to suffer from insomnia." The little guy with the pattern really doesn't know how to accurately complain about this seemingly impeccable logic. Tucson doesn't know how to complain about the pattern. Correct complaint. Sand sculptures can always come up with genius ideas. You are not worried about insomnia. Are you worried about sudden death? Come on. Let me give you the correct posture for staying up late. Bucky put the little one on the couch, then went to warm her up a glass of milk and a plate of Oreos, and sat next to her, turning on the TV to some boring late-night shopping show. The little guy doesn't need others to comfort her. Don't be afraid, don't take it to heart, and the like, but it will remind her and let her recall the scary scene again. She just needs to have someone by her side and feel safe knowing she is not alone. Do you know how many combinations of Oreos are correct? Oreos, Ollies, and Oreos. Although Bucky didn't know any bedtime stories, he told a few bad jokes and complained about TV shopping that challenged people's IQ. Soon, little Sky calmed down, and slowly began to fight with his eyelids. Dang dang. However, just as little Sky was about to fall asleep, there was a knock on the door, which was not loud but very hasty. Who? Bucky looked at the little guy who woke up suddenly in his arms, and rolled his eyes angrily. If this is the wrong door, you will be finished if I call you or not. When I opened the door, I was taken aback. Outside the door was Frank Castor with a haggard and anxious face. I have something to ask you, can you come with me? Wait for me to change. Seeing that this guy wanted to drag him and run away, Bucky just wanted to keep in touch with him, so he nodded and didn't say anything. I just went over to comfort little Sky. The little guy was a little scared when he saw Frank coming. I'll go out for a while, go back to the bedroom or watch TV, in short, don't open the door if someone knocks. After giving some more instructions, he put on his clothes and followed Frank to leave. It's my son. He lost a lot of blood and stopped breathing for too long, which led to a lack of oxygen to the brain. According to the doctor, he may be permanently mentally damaged. Sitting in Frank's muscle car and running wildly all the way, Bucky also knew why he was looking for him. But it's a pity. Although the system props are powerful, they can only restore health and replenish vitality. The healing props can only bring his son back from the deathline, but because of problems such as brain hypoxia caused by stopping breathing, the system props can't help either. I know you have special abilities. There are extraordinary abilities in this world. So, can you help me? However, Frank's pleading only got Bucky's apologetic eyes and a slight shake of his head. His heart turned cold for a moment. The steering wheel couldn't be stabilized for a moment, and the car shook for a while. Frank asked tremblingly, do you need anything? But Bucky interrupted him directly. If I have any request, I have mentioned it before, haven't I? I am not stingy. Then hand him a Furkong type I syringe. This is what I use to treat you and your son. It is a healing potion that can be used to rescue seriously injured patients. And I only have this kind of treatment. You can try again for your son, but you have to be mentally prepared. Bucky doesn't feel bad for one or two healing potions, and even if it's a prosthetic body, as long as it can save people, it can help. But even the network access pod that connects the brain does not have the function of repairing brain damage. And the prosthesis cannot be installed by others. The props can be used by other people because they are still used by Bucky, and they are behaviors of the same nature as Bucky shooting, scanning with prosthetic eyes, and beating people with prosthetic limbs. Frank looked at the small gadget with the red cross on it, which was very delicate at first glance, and his heart was completely cold, but his eyes were full of tears, and his chest was full of resentment and anger. But the poor parents in the world, even if the hope is slim, he still held a 10,000th hope, suppressed the feeling of going crazy, and took Bucky to the hospital of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then watching Bucky inject the injection into his son, who doesn't respond, and finally, grief turns to despair. Then despair burst into madness. Frank, with bloodshot eyes and speechless, rushed out of the hospital, returned to the car, and slammed the door shut. Where do you want to go? Has Coulson found out anything? But at this moment, he heard a familiar voice from beside him. In his rage, he's completely oblivious to how Bucky got into his car. Then he realized that he hadn't thought about what he was going to do at all. His brain was just filled with rage, and his body was already dominated by rage. Phewick. Frank, who was so angry and mad, finally couldn't hold back any longer. He beat the steering wheel with both hands and let out a beast-like growl. Hey, Coulson, did you interrogate those two gangsters overnight? After Frank shouted all his strength and lay on the steering wheel with his arms around his head, Bucky took out his mobile phone and called Brother Hairline. What? I just finished the operation and I'm still resting. I'll ask when I wake up. Where are they? Let me go over and have a look. Those two bastards who shot and killed innocent people are entitled to this kind of treatment. Bucky spat secretly. Maude could not save a good person, but he had to heal the beast. But he still let Frank drive and went to another SHIELD emergency hospital. After passing by, under Coulson's curious gaze, he gave each of the two bastards a healing potion, and said, "Wake up these bastards, and then interrogate them." The two awful injuries were healed, but they were still affected by the sedative drugs. You can invite Frank to join in. With his threat, it will be convenient for you to adjudicate the case, but you should watch him and don't let him have any aggressive behavior. I see, please rest assured. Bucky saw that Frank had changed from a sluggish walking corpse to a raging beast, staring at the two bastards, so he pulled Coulson to explain a few words, and Coulson lived up to his hairline, as calm as ever. Being mature, Bucky also felt relieved. Since things are still clueless, Bucky won't be of much use here. Who's watching Frank's daughter? A caregiver has been arranged. Then I'll leave first, and let me know if there is any news. After talking with Coulson, Bucky went to Frank again, but didn't say much. Little Sky needs sympathy from others, but Frank doesn't. Bucky just patted him on the shoulder and said, "If you need help, call me." After leaving, I felt a little better because of the upgrade, but I was a little depressed. In this world, there are so many miscellaneous things that pop up suddenly and make people feel unhappy. Mada, I am not happy in my heart, and you should not be happy in your heart either. Bucky thought to himself, Frank can't find someone to vent, can't he find it? Get on the police radio, let's do it. The night is still long, you will be paralyzed when you sleep, and the bastards are everywhere. How can Bucky sleep? Little slob, wake up, the sun is shining on your ass. Well uncle, I don't feel well. I may have a fever. Oh. That's terrible. I'll take you to the hospital, you need an injection. Huh? An injection? No need, I think I'll be fine after a little rest. Are you a doctor? What do you think it's good for? Let's go and take you to the hospital. No. In the early morning, Bucky carried the little Sky, who was lying in bed, on his shoulders, and ran quickly, making the little guy who pretended to be sick and didn't want to go to school scream strangely, revealing his true colors. It's been almost a week since the Frank Castle incident. But the investigation didn't go smoothly. Those two bastards were just gangsters. They were fierce but thoughtless. Under the interrogation by SHIELD, they told everything they knew, but it was useless. Even SHIELD dispatched manpower to directly take down that gang. However, it was discovered that the gang had nothing to do with Frank's past experiences. They also just take money to do things, and they don't care who gives the money at all. It is also impossible to find out who has such a big hatred with Frank and wants to kill his whole family directly. However, the direction of investigation is not broken. Both Frank and Coulson felt that they had lost their clues, and when they were a little helpless, Bucky woke them up with a word. The problem was still with Frank. There is no unreasonable hatred in this world. Frank must have done something to provoke the other party, so that the other party used such extreme methods. The opponent's target was Frank, and his wife and children were only collateral damage. However, it is necessary to investigate who Frank has provoked. Good guy. Even though Frank is not a punisher, he has always had an upright character of jealousy and hatred, and he can't rub the sand in his eyes. When he was in the army, he performed special missions overseas and even black operations. He saw a lot of bad things, such as black sheep in the army, bullies among the security personnel of defense contractors, and incidents of bullying locals. He took care of a lot of things. Not to mention cooperating with contractors in the CIA, don't do too many things that are invisible. Even when he returned home after retiring from the army, he had a family, but he had such a temperament that he couldn't see evil, and he also took actions to punish evil. For a moment, Frank couldn't imagine how many people he had provoked and how many enemies he had made. Even if the hatred was enough to find the gunman to kill him, he couldn't count it. There is time for investigation. Fortunately, this gave Frank direction, so that he would not become a mad beast with nowhere to vent his rage. As for Bucky, he couldn't help him for the time being, and he returned to a peaceful life. Yes, calm, Hydra seems to have really died down, or maybe it's holding back a big one. On the other hand, Howard, in order to show ignorance of Hydra, maintain the usual pace of life, and be busy with his career, secretly investigate the inside of SHIELD. Also need to be cautious, and the progress is very slow. Bucky is not in a hurry, anyway. This matter is led by Howard, a genius, and he just needs to cooperate. His goal is to strengthen himself and make himself stronger. Fighting against Hydra is far less cost-effective than strengthening oneself. If he is not the Winter Soldier, but Thor and Captain Marvel, then he is afraid of the machinations of the hairy Hydra. These days, Bucky has been working on fighting crime on the streets, striving for faster upgrades. On Little Sky's side, Bucky also spent a lot of time with her, making her gradually forget her previous fears. I have to say that the future Shockwave already has a big heart that is extraordinary. She was afraid that the child might not be affected by autism, but she endured it very well. Seeing her like this, Bucky waited for the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. to help him complete all the procedures, and let them help Sky enroll again without bothering the two masters. The little guy is already a primary school student. But just because I spent a few days with Bucky and let myself go, I was so comfortable, I started to get tired of studying before I went to school. Send the little guy to school, Bucky thought. It's time to find a nanny for the little guy. Now I am free enough to take care of her, but it is not convenient, and I am not very good at taking care of others, so I still have to find a special nanny. However, there was no online recruitment these days, so Bucky went to the newspaper again, published the recruitment notice, and waited for someone to apply. Wow, Uncle, this is the legendary computer. After school in the afternoon, little Sky was picked up by Bucky. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a brand new computer on the desk in the living room. It was a Compaq 486. Everyone bought it on Christmas Eve. It was ordered today, and it was delivered and assembled today. The little guy was immediately attracted by this novel gadget. It has to be said that there is a predestined relationship between little Sky and computers. At the age when he should like Barbie dolls, playhouse, and makeup, he is not very interested in those things. High-tech stuff. Uncle, quickly open it and have a look. The little guy was bouncing and sitting in front of the computer, poking the keyboard with one finger, and poking the wheel mouse, and beckoning to Bucky excitedly. Although this computer is considered a top-level configuration at the moment, with a 50 MHz 486 processor, 8 MB memory, 512 MB hard drive, and a 2D graphics accelerator card, in Bucky's eyes, it is no different from an electronic dictionary. But this made Bucky feel like playing something new and retro again. Then he went over with great interest and pressed the power button. Oh, it's open. Oh, there is a pattern. Uncle, you are amazing. Little Sky's fuss made Bucky feel a little embarrassed when he wanted to say something about the basics. Even if he showed off the operation to the future world's top hacker, he didn't want to show how to turn it on. However, there is really nothing to show off about this machine. MS-DOS and Win 3.0 operating systems are pre-installed in this computer. Even when entering Windows, you have to execute commands in DOS. No internet access, only some genuine software that is not much cheaper than a computer, and even more expensive than a computer. He didn't even have minesweeping and cards, so Bucky couldn't show off his 45-second advanced minesweeping hand speed at all. But even so, Lil Sky still watched it with gusto. She really found it very interesting, and she just dangled the mouse for a long time, and she never got tired of it. I can't play anymore if it's interesting, go and do your homework. No, Uncle, just play for a while. It's a good thing you met me, put me where I used to be, and sooner or later you go to pay homage to the King of Thunder and Lightning. Seeing that the little guy has a tendency to be addicted to computers, Bucky directly picked it up for the little guy, carried it on his shoulders, and asked her to do homework. Then I also fiddled with the mouse for a long time, not knowing why. What do I use this computer for? Before, I was misled by Howard's computer and the system he made himself. Everyone has played man-machine dialogue. This is the best computer on the market that I bought, but it doesn't even have minesweeping. When Bucky bought a computer, he actually wanted to use it to make his first pot of gold. When I came to this world, I fell in love with the Hydra, which was an inseparable bond. So to cooperate with Howard and strive to upgrade and become stronger, this is Bucky's goal, or a task that must be completed. But beyond the mission, there is life. Bucky cherishes this most bizarre and hard-earned second chance. You can change your identity, start a new life in a new environment. In the past, the numb mechanical life of Fubao 996 has gradually lost itself, because the definition of self has become work, eating, and sleeping. Everything is done step by step, and everything is repeated and repeated. Bucky didn't want to live like this again. He also didn't want to stay entangled with the Hydra for the rest of his life. The centipede was dead but not stiff. By the time Bucky crossed over, the Hydra in the play hadn't been cleaned up yet. He wants to be free, he wants to be unrestrained, and he wants to live a wonderful life. But here, it is full of opportunities. Bucky only dared to think about it before, and the things that he could only see in novels have become reality here. You can see and touch them. As long as you fight for them, there will be unimaginable things. Reward. The opportunity is right in front of you. How could Bucky be content with the status quo just because he has already embraced the thick legs of a rich man? Besides, it's okay to talk to Howard once or twice. If you eat people with a soft mouth and short hands, even if Howard doesn't care, Bucky doesn't have such a big face to open his mouth again and again. And to make the first pot of money, what Bucky thinks of is nothing more than the deeds of those senior traversers who are familiar with before the time travel, copying songs, novels, and various documents, and then buying various potential stocks and the like. When it comes to copying songs, Bucky is tone deaf, and never dares to go to the kind of karaoke, where other people ask for money for singing, and Bucky sings for money. So Bucky thought of copying books. Yes, when you buy a computer, Bucky uses it for coding. In fact, Bucky wants to make computer games more, because in his previous life, he was a little interested in this area, and he made some very simple pixel games by himself. But this idea was immediately dismissed after understanding the situation. Before, Bucky didn't have much information about this era in his memory, only a general concept of 90s. But in this era of computer technology explosion, computers in the early 90s and late 90s are basically two concepts. Unlike the toothpaste factory after that, when Bucky traveled through time, the CPU that went back 10 years was still used, and there was not much difference at all. At this time, the performance of the computer is sufficient, far away from the mainstream game consoles on the market, but the penetration rate of computers is too low. In this era, even in the beautiful country, computers are not something that every household has. Desert. Moreover, the initial investment in making games is too large, and it is far less convenient than copying books. And when copying books, Bucky doesn't even need to type on the keyboard, as long as he directly connects to the computer with the Internet access compartment. Bucky can directly talk to the computer through the operating system of the access compartment. Just think about what you want, and the text will automatically appear in the document on the computer, which is much more convenient than voice recognition. As for what Bucky wanted to copy, the first thing he thought of was the A Song of Ice and Fire series that he liked very much before time travel. At that time, he even found the English version and slowly gnawed at it. But this book is too yellow, and it really became popular only after it was adapted into the American drama Game of Thrones, and the American drama in turn drove the novel to sell tens of millions. And as far as Little Sky is interested in computers, if he saw it when he was not paying attention. It's something for all ages, and the audience is wider, and the children's money is the best to earn. Even if you really want to copy Bingo, change to another place, not at home. For all ages, the most famous one is of course the Harry Potter series, but Bucky has only watched the movies in this series, and the first novel, because Aunt J.K. wrote it for her children at that time. It was a fairy tale after watching the narrative style. I don't really want to watch the second part. Fortunately, the movie is not bad either. Aunt J.K. participated in the filming of the whole process. The movie basically restores the story. What Bucky has to do is to expand the plot in memory into a book. As soon as he thought about it, Bucky pulled out the data cable at the base of his left palm, connected it to the computer, and the Word document was automatically opened on the monitor, and the text automatically appeared on the document. Harry Potter, Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Uncle, the homework is finished. Let me play on the computer again, okay? Wow. Uncle, are you really not a Terminator? Little Sky guessed that she had messed up her homework, but she didn't feel hungry when it was mealtime. Instead, she just wanted to play with the computer, but when she ran out, she saw that her uncle was performing a non-human operation again. Fortunately, Bucky basically didn't hide anything from Little Sky, even his real name, but Little Sky didn't know what that meant. And Bucky's performance and behavior beyond common sense again and again, for Little Sky, who is only 7 years old, has not yet formed the 3 views, and is most able to accept novelty children. He also quickly adapts again and again. And it's getting easier and easier to accept. Hungry, I'll get you something to eat. Bucky also writes very well, writes like a diabetes insipidus, unknowingly debuts from Harry Potter, and writes that Diagon Alley meets Hermione Granger, one of the Iron Triangle. Looking at it, the sky was getting dark, and it was almost past the mealtime, so I hurried to get some food for Little Sky, but I didn't care about the little guy playing with the computer. Anyway, he saved the file, which can be directly stored in the network access warehouse. He is either pictorial memory or pictorial memory. Simply warming up some fast food, Bucky thought about quickly finding a nanny, so that he could have someone who would take care of the little guy, but his behavior at home had to be restricted, and he couldn't be as undisguised as he is now. Maybe he has to find a secret base or something, which is also convenient for his street activities. Time to eat. Oh, Little Sky stared at Bucky's document, fascinated. Since it is a children's fantasy story, Bucky tried his best to recall the style of the first Harry Potter he had read, and tried to use the simplest vernacular and the most understandable description to write. But this time, he really realized it. Auntie JK's talent. It is obviously such an easy-to-understand narration, without any gorgeous rhetoric or uncommon words, but it can describe such a wonderful fantasy world. And this way of writing, even little Sky, who just entered the first grade today and only secretly read some books and dictionaries left by the children in front of her in the foster family, can stumble and read the general meaning. I was fascinated by the story. Instead, all the worry in Bucky's heart dissipated. The charm of Harry Potter is universal everywhere. Bucky, I've contacted you about the publication. You can just bring the manuscript to the editor. I didn't expect you to have such a talent. What's so strange about this? It's not like you don't know, Steve likes to draw comics, so what's so special about me like to make up stories? We both wanted to publish a graphic novel back then. 3 days later, Bucky finished Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first step in this series, with a coding speed of 100.000 words per hour, or thinking speed, for 3 hours a day. Because it is based on the limited memory of the book and the plot of the movie, the number of words feels a little less than the original version, but it is still a complete story, and the narrative structure, plot rhythm, etc. are relatively reasonable. This was certified by Little Sky, the first fan of this book in this world. Although it is not authoritative at all, Bucky is relieved that children can understand and like to listen to it. Bucky just printed it out and asked Howard to help contact his family's publishing house. It's not one, it's his family. Howard, a super genius, has naturally published books, and of course he won't allow his works to be commented on by the editors of those publishers, so he simply bought a small company that has the ability to officially publish publishing house. Anyway, he wrote books based on the mentality of not wanting to read them. If others don't read the books written by his genius, it means that others have no chance. Bucky is also very confident in himself, in Aunt JK. Hearing that Howard has his own publishing house, he simply prints the book and sells it directly. Anyway, he is not in a hurry, so he will let the book slowly build its reputation. That's it. It's just that Bucky didn't expect that Howard also read his manuscript and thought he wrote it well. Thanks again to God JK. If I have a chance in the future, I will go to England to find out if there is such a God in this world. But what Bucky doesn't know is that there is really a JK master in this world, and he has had the original idea since '89, but it was not until '96 that the outline of the first story was completed. And in this world, after seeing someone write out a story that was still a hazy concept in her mind, the peer of the great god later suspected that there really was magic in this world, and also found this come on, hoping to get in on the writing, and then after Bucky guiltily recruited her, she wrote the last few Harry Potter books and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and was the sole author of those works. But those are things for later. Bucky just handed over the first draft to Howard's publishing house, and the publishing house has now hired a fairy tale editor to help with polishing and error correction, and it can be printed directly. Other specific things are also done with the help of the publishing house. What Bucky did was just go through the story in his head, and the computer coded it out for himself, and then the follow-up work was completed with the help of rich men. This made him experience unprecedented happiness. Sure enough, earning money while lying down is the most enjoyable thing in the world. After copying the Sorcerer's Stone, Bucky was going to see the effect first, and then turned to copying A Song of Ice and Fire. Because Bucky inquired about it in the past 2 days, this world is a little different from his original world, and there is no original author Mr. Martin here. Mr. Martin is not like Aunt JK. He has been famous for a long time. He began to write fantasy novels in the '70s and won many awards. He has won the Hugo Award, the most famous award in the science fiction world, and he also entered Hollywood in the '80s. He was the one who took the photo, and his identity, there is no need to bother to inquire. The result was that no such person was found. This is also the reason why Bucky feels at ease. Without the old man, maybe there will be no Aunt. And since there is no such masterpiece as the old man, bingo, as the most loyal fan, how can Bucky not bring it to this world? It's just that it's going to be carried out behind Little Sky's back, and there's no rush. Baji has more experience in reserve to restore it well. Senor, breakfast is ready. I'll call Little Sky right now. I see, Rita. Another morning, a strange woman appeared in Bucky's house. A Latino fat aunt in her 50s. After copying the Philosopher's Stone, Bucky also completed another thing on his mind. That is finding the right nanny. The fat aunt's name is Rita. She is a Mexican, and a serious family of 3 immigrated to the beautiful country. Both her husband and son have serious jobs, and her son is getting married. She used to be a nurse, and later worked as a nanny. She just finished her previous job and wanted to take a break, But her son needed money to get married, so she happened to see Bucky's job advertisement, so she continued to work. Bucky asked Coulson to help find out all these, so he was relieved to leave little Sky in her care. Bucky is very satisfied with Aunt Rita, but little Sky is not used to it. She is used to living with her uncle, and there is one more person who is still her nanny. In her heart, she subconsciously thinks that this is a kind of alienation. But Bucky is really not suitable for taking care of people. Facing little Sky, he has no face at all, and sooner or later he will be spoiled by this little guy. That's why he made a decision after learning about Rita's information. She has taken care of several children similar to Sky. Fortunately, even if the little guy has some opinions, she won't show it. She doesn't want to get angry with her uncle, and doesn't want to do anything that might make him hate her. And Rita's experience quickly conquered little Sky's stomach with patience and good food, and the unique care of women also made the little guy not reject her soon. After breakfast, Rita went to send little Sky to school, and Bucky was about to continue thinking, and wanted to try to make it for the second Chamber of Secrets. The second one had only seen the movie, so this time it will take more thought. Fortunately, I have made the first part, and I have some experience, so it shouldn't be difficult. Hello, little sister. Hello, auntie, who are you? I'm your new neighbor, little guy. What's your name? Just then, Bucky heard little Sky talking to a young female voice outside the door. New neighbors. When Bucky heard this, he walked over to open the door and saw a tall young woman who expressed a little helplessness towards little Sky's sweet mouth. Little Sky called all the young women Bucky met auntie. Melinda didn't care if she heard it before, but this one in front of her looks like she is in her early 20s, younger than the rookie policewoman, full of youthful breath, but the beauty with a cold and elegant temperament is obviously dissatisfied with this title. Hi, I'm Johnny Lind. What's my name? Hello, Maria Hill, nice to meet you. When Bucky saw this female college student for the first time, he was taken aback for a while. Is this Robin coming to be your neighbor? But I heard that the other party didn't even change her name, and directly said that her name was Maria Hill. The heroic, glamorous and unparalleled commander of the aerospace aircraft carrier in the future will be the right-hand man of majestic Falkahea. Who sent this? Damn Falkman. No, he hasn't taken charge of the overall situation yet, and he can't control Bucky. That old Alexander Pierce thing. No way, Commander Hill is not something he can corrupt, right? And it's not easy for him to skip Howard and pay special attention to Bucky. So the most likely option is Howard, but why? You said you were a college student at NYCU? NYCU, the City University of New York, although not as famous as NYU, has a long history and produced many celebrities. Yeah, I'm a student at the Brooklyn campus. I just enrolled this year. How about you, Mr. Lind? Have you lived here for a long time? Bucky pretended not to know who Maria Hill was, and the future Commander Hill was also very enthusiastic, directly asking Bucky to come into her house to do work. Yeah, I've been living here. Sorry, the box hasn't been opened yet, and there's only mineral water in the refrigerator. I'm new here, so I haven't prepared anything. It's okay. Why don't you live on campus? I'm used to living alone. By the way, I hope to find a part-time job. Mr. Lind should be familiar with the surrounding situation, right? Hill is very enthusiastic, very introverted, and looks like a female college student who has not experienced much in the world and can't walk around when she sees a handsome guy. Bucky didn't point it out, but cooperated with her in acting, but I don't know, which one is she acting in? Hey, Howard, you know the new guy next door to me? After chatting for a while, Hill said that he wanted to invite Bucky to lunch. With an aggressive attitude, Bucky agreed, but quickly left, and called Howard when he got home. I was just about to tell you that there is a child in your family and a nanny. The child's situation is a bit special. I will send someone there. If you can't take care of it, I can help you take care of it. Sure enough, it was arranged by Howard, so Hill was doing it personally? A harmless little joke. And, this Agent Hill is someone Nick Fury is very optimistic about. So what? Want me to take care of you? Bucky was a little surprised when Howard pointed it out. Don't worry, I'll take care of her. That's good. You can handle the matter. I don't worry. If there is any situation, please contact me. It seems that Howard is also very optimistic about Mommy Frank Shaw? Bucky didn't know. What he said to take care of him was to really take care of him and build a good relationship with the future Commander Hill. However, Howard heard it as taking care of a bit, that is, he would keep an eye on her and make some small moves, such as reporting Bucky's situation to her superior, Nick Fury, or superior Pierce, the first notify him immediately. The two seem to have a tacit understanding, but in fact they are full of twists and turns. Fortunately, it was Howard who really wanted to go wrong, not Bucky. Bucky really felt that with the future Agent Hill to help him watch the house, he could really rest assured that little Sky was at home alone. Dang dang. Just as he was thinking, there was a knock on the door. "My house doesn't have hot water yet, can I borrow yours?" Outside the door was the pretty and a little embarrassed Maria Hill. Bucky really didn't expect that he would have the opportunity to meet Commander Hill like this. "Which one are you playing? You are really an ordinary young and beautiful college student. This kind of plot will only appear in some action movies where 2 or 3 people complete 1 or 2 scenes, right?" Bucky looked at Maria Hill like this, not only did not feel fluctuated in his heart, but he also complained. "Well, it's not without fluctuations. Who wouldn't want to be teased by a young female college student? Whoever changed, even if I feel unrealistic in my heart, I'm afraid it's not a prank, but I can't help but feel a little dark, and even have a fluke mentality and fantasy, right?" Bucky is not abstinent, but after crossing over, he has never had a normal sports life, and his subconscious physiological reaction is just a manifestation of the health of a normal man. "So, let's stop here. Agent Hill, I've spoken to Howard Stark on the phone." When Bucky let Maria Hill into the room and faced her glowing eyes, he made a pause gesture, indicating that he didn't want to play like this. "Sir, Agent Hill, report to you." The woman's face changed as soon as she said it. Hearing what Bucky said, Hill suddenly changed from an action movie expression to an indifference that was only slightly better than Ice Cube Melinda, and also took a step back to keep a distance. It's just that there was still a flash of "tisk, it's boring" in his expression. Sure enough, or of course it was a joke. Not long after graduating from the academy, Maria Hill, who was still a rookie agent, thought that she would be valued by a level 7 agent chief, thinking that she would directly participate in frontline missions and become a super spy like 007. Unexpectedly, a call was made temporarily, and a task of disguised identities was arranged to secretly observe and protect special personnel. Originally smug, she was still somewhat dissatisfied in her heart. Although she would not show it, she would obey orders. But I learned that it was one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. The legendary Howard Stark personally arranged the task, and the target of the task was also a very important key figure. She paid attention immediately. However, she also developed great curiosity about this top-secret mission goal. So when she was still very young, she had a sudden whim, and she wanted to play a prank, so she didn't directly report her family name, but came here first, wanting to test it out. Make a fool of Bucky, or see what's so special about Bucky. It turned out that there was not enough time, and it just made Bucky feel a little bit excited, a normal and healthy reaction. Just when she wanted to work harder, the other party directly called out her identity. Although it is a pity, Maria Hill will not play anymore. "Sir, I will live like a normal college student and keep my disguise, but if there is something to call me, I will arrive as quickly as possible. I will install cameras in the corridor and around to keep an eye on the surrounding situation. I won't disturb your work, you just do what you want." Seeing Hill's official appearance, Bucky also had the attitude of, "Young man, I am optimistic about you." Sending Hill away, Bucky still thought, the candidate Howard picked is really good, and now he can rest assured that he will stay out at night and go to the streets to fight crimes. If there is any emergency, Hill will help him watch over it. I can still not go home for 2 or 3 days or even longer. Late at night, Bucky's eyes went dark for a moment, and he completed the system sleep for 1 hour, completely recovering his energy and physical condition. Then he glanced at little Sky, who had fallen asleep sweetly after listening to the story, and quietly left the house, went downstairs, and got in the car. Start the car and control the car audio to synchronize to the police radio of the prosthetic ear. Then he was about to put into gear and step on the accelerator, but at this moment, he heard a rush of footsteps. Then he saw a slender figure wearing home clothes, holding clothes in his hands, with messy hair, trotting over, directly opened the car door, and got into the car. "Sir, it's so late, is there anything else to do?" Looking at Maria Hill, who was short of breath and smelled of apple shower gel, with a somewhat reproachful expression. Bucky said in his heart that if you are not angry, I will be angry? How should I answer it this time? Low EQ. We all know it's so late, why don't you go to bed and wait for sudden death? High EQ. Be vigilant at all times, Agent Hill is really conscientious. Didn't you come here? You just happened to help me watch the house, so I went out to play for a while. Hearing such an answer, Hill couldn't help but roll his eyes. Where are you going to play in your combat uniform? There must be something. What is this mysterious guy going to do? Sir, My responsibility is to protect your safety. I need to keep track of your whereabouts and keep a distance from which I can act in time. Bucky also curled his lips when he heard that. What do I want you for? When I'm working, you stand beside me and help me take care of the children? However, it is not easy for Bucky to be sent away directly. In any case, he is also the future Commander Hill. When Hydra was still lurking in S.H.I.E.L.D., he was a trustworthy person. Then he said to Hill, "Then you sit still and put on your seatbelt." After speaking, instead of stepping on the accelerator, Bucky got out of the car and closed the door. Because the little girl Hill didn't know whether to treat Bucky as an outsider or not to treat Bucky as a man, so she just took off her clothes and wanted to change into a combat uniform in the car. Tisk tisk, these long legs. Well, although the body is a gentleman's, as Sheldon said, superheroes will peep. Are not you cold? Seeing that Hill changed into a thin combat uniform on this cold winter night, and finally felt cold in the car that hadn't warmed up, Bucky couldn't help being a little funny. I have received the most professional training and can adapt to any combat requirements. Hill blushed slightly. It should be cold. Go and change clothes, I'll wait for you. No need. Where is the trust between people? Isn't there? No. Anyway, no need. Just not. The problem is that Bucky doesn't have it either. The physical strength that breaks through the limit of human beings, and the sub-zero temperature in winter nights will not affect the action. Forget it. Let's go. So he drove to a military supply store first, and bought a suitable suit for Hill. So where the hell are we going? Hill is looking forward to it, and Bucky will say that he is going to perform some top-secret mission. To fight evil. What? Hero and righteous, street hero, patron saint of the city in the dark, Bertman, Nightwing and so on. Yes, there are DC comics in this world, which reassures Bucky a lot. Although Marvel is not much better than DC next door, it is still not as simple as Gotham, and it will not be easily Flashpoint reboot. Sir, are you serious? Hill couldn't believe it, and was full of anticipation to do something big, and this was the end? The comics are all made up, okay. Even if you want to be Batman, where can I find you Superman and Joker? I've never been so serious in my life. Why? Do you want to be my little follower? You can be called Winter Girl. Hill, who always felt that Bucky was mocking something, felt that he had never rolled his eyes so many times in his life. And I was also conflicted in my heart. She is the defender of the law, she is the one who maintains world peace, justice and justice. Why should she become an extrajudicial vigilante who challenges the law? Regardless of the entanglement in the rookie agent's heart, Bucky drove the car directly to a certain neighborhood in Brooklyn. Last night, Bucky stumbled across someone buying and selling washing powder in a dark corner, and followed the seller all the way to this place, where an African-American gang gathered. But Bucky didn't drive into the block. Because the streets around here are all gathering places of African descent, there are many gang members, as well as the unemployed and homeless. On cold winter nights, there are also several places where people gather around the lit gasoline drums to warm up and drink. And there are many people with lights on. Bucky bet that if he drove over and got out of the car and was seen, within 5 minutes, someone would steal a car or someone with a gun would come looking for him. And Bucky didn't want to be seen either. Sir, where is the person? Hill, who was wearing a combat uniform and masked, followed Bucky out of the car for some unknown reason, and followed behind him. He was about to ask, but in the blink of an eye, the figure in front of him disappeared. When he looked carefully, he realized that the opponent cleverly used the contrast between light and dark to hide in the shadows. This is not a thief, in fact, his hands are itchy, and he fooled her to follow her to steal things, right? But it turned out that Bucky wasn't going to an empty house. Instead, I went to the largest house nearby, a single-family house on the second floor, and it was brightly lit, not far away, and I could hear rap songs coming from inside. 11 people and 1 dog. Bucky glanced around with his prosthetic eyes, and said to Hill, "I'll kill that dog, and you go and help me remove the fuse." "Where is this? What do you want to do?" Hill took Bucky's arm and asked very seriously. Obviously, an answer like, "I will know in due time," cannot make her let go. Although this is Ben's gang, they have a secret involved. About the Chia's foreign laundry powder entering the country, I'm going to get rid of this den and interrogate their boss. Bucky was just thinking about it randomly. If you listen carefully, you can hear Bucky's pauses from time to time. Hill was completely fooled, and her breathing was a little short. Sure enough, she was here to do something big. "No problem, leave it to me. What do I need to do next?" "Well, look out for me and let me know if there is any situation." Hill looked at Bucky's empty hands, and couldn't help asking, But you said there are a lot of people there, and they should all have guns. Action. Seeing that Bucky quickly disappeared from her sight, Hill couldn't help but feel a little angry, but he also had to cooperate with Bucky's actions. Sizzle. Following her, she saw that the bully dog in the yard seemed to have sensed something, and suddenly stood up on all fours from a prone position, but an electric arc shot out from his body, which disappeared in a flash, without making a sound. It fell to the ground and stopped moving. What's the situation? Hill felt more and more wrong. Bang bang bang. The silence of the winter night was broken by a series of gunshots. Maria Hill pulled the switch and watched as Bucky burst through the glass window into the suddenly darkened room. Followed by a series of gunshots, yelling, screaming, and the sounds she was familiar with, the sounds of fists hitting the body, and even bones breaking. She couldn't help feeling worried, but she didn't dare to rush into the pitch-black environment inside the house. She became more and more strange and incomprehensible. Why did that Johnny, who was unarmed and didn't have night vision goggles, let her pull the switch and rush in like that? How dare he? What's the difference between this and death? However, the sound of gunfire, the bullets piercing through the wooden walls, and the continuous flashing light from the windows all indicated that Bucky was fine. Of course Bucky is fine. With target positioning and low light vision, he forced his way in, as if he had entered no one's land. And with the subcutaneous armor, he is now basically bulletproof, and he has let go of the last psychological burden. As long as the opponent doesn't have an anti-material sniper rifle or a grenade rocket launcher, there won't be any problem even if the bullet hits him, so what's there to be afraid of? It's over. Bucky, who had completely let go, fully integrated into the Winter Soldier's fierce fighting style. Facing the enemy, it highlights a courageous and brave man. Like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, rushing all the way, amidst the fear and screams of the opponent, punch them one by one, and knock them all down. Scream? Yes, screaming like a little girl watching a horror movie. He was still a muscular man with a height of 1.8 meters, but this black brother was unexpectedly timid. Although others were afraid, at least they saw Bucky's figure. When the black shadow rushed over, he could shoot twice. But this guy, like a little girl seeing Freddy Krueger, screamed and crouched with his head in his arms. However, because of this, he was temporarily spared. Pia. 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 Stop hitting, boss, stop hitting. But it would be better to be knocked out with a punch. He was grabbed by the neck with his left hand by Bucky. The hurt is extremely high, and the humiliation is even stronger. Big muscle bully Hey-Ge broke down decisively, begging for mercy in a crying voice. Bucky stopped what he was doing, turned on the flashlight, swayed around on the ground, and let the other party see his face with a mask and goggles, then lowered his voice, and asked coldly, "Who is your boss?" What? The big muscle bully was taken aback. Pia. 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 Who is your boss? It's him. The big muscle bully really cried. He thought it was the enemy who came, but he turned out to be mentally ill. You don't know what we do, so you come and do it all for us? Are there any laws? Dajiba really wanted to call the police at this moment, saying that a lunatic broke into the house and violently violated him, causing indelible physical and mental harm to him. Pia. Bucky slaps him one last time, knocking him out. Let's go in and have a look. Outside, with the wind blowing, Hill hesitated to go in, not noticing that the gunfire stopped for a while. But when she secretly yelled for trouble and was about to pull out her gun and break in, she saw a black figure jumping out of the open window on the second floor. Bucky carried a black boy on his shoulder and a small school bag in his hand, and fell from the sky without making too much noise. Walk. You are. Sure enough, to be a thief. No. This is to be a robber. No. There are kidnappers. Does this guy still see her as a shield agent? Let's go first. Gunshots rang out continuously, the neighborhood was already bustling, and several surrounding houses were lit up. But it was a dark day. Even if Bucky was carrying a person, he was lurking silently, directly carrying the person, and groping out quietly. The man and the travel bag were all stuffed into the trunk of the car, and he drove away. He also stopped at a public phone booth, because the neighborhood was controlled by gangs, and no one wanted to call the police. Bucky even called the police himself. Near the Brooklyn Bridge, the fence by the river. Wake up. This is Johnny. Bucky woke up the tied black brother boss, of course not as teasing little Sky, but with a big mouth, staring at him with a flashing emoji. He didn't want to bring it to the black boss, he just wanted to leave after the fight. But when he fooled Hill just now, Bucky's heart moved. The one who buys washing powder must have a purchase channel, and this is a small street gang, He probably didn't find the source of the goods himself, and he must have a family, a bigger gang. Instead of stopping here and going to the street for bag snatchers, why not make it bigger? You. How dare you do this to me? Do you know who I am, Mommy Fock? Boss Hay was woken up, screaming in pain, anger and fear. Are you Hitler's brother-in-law, or Stalin's second uncle? What? It's not that you cheated. Pia. 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 Watching Bucky's off-kilter interrogation, Hill couldn't help but twitch his mouth, feeling that he heard more mouth slaps than gunshots tonight. Stop. Mommy Fock, stop. I said, can't I say it? Speak. Damn fuck. What do you want to ask me? Don't hit me anymore. Bucky didn't care about the black boss's swearing. He knew they had this problem. Don't look at other races who scolded them. It was discrimination immediately, but they themselves were full of shit, and they called each other Brother Mud to show their racial advantage. But Bucky just wanted to smack him. And he doesn't ask anything, just has a look of, I'm just making fun of you when I'm free, with a mentally ill expression on his face, which really broke Boss Hay's mind. I'm with Boss Kevin on 18th Street. So when Bucky asked him who his previous family was, he said it without hesitation, with a burst of grief and indignation. That's it. You just asked me this. You can know this by just asking around on the street, right? There is no future at first glance. Who do you mix well with? With a twist, talk about the situation of your boss. Of course, 18th Street does not sell mahua, but the boss Kevin, who was born in the No. 6 neighborhood of Brooklyn, and that neighborhood is also the lair of his gang. The 18th Street gang is also the largest laundry detergent dealer in the gangster gang in Brooklyn. The laundry detergent in the African American gathering places in Brooklyn are all distributed by them, but those outside the gang's sphere of influence are all for this gangster. Small gang distribution like the boss. Very well. Thank you for your cooperation, but I need you to do one last thing for me. What, you say? I promise to do it. Simple, please die. After Bucky finished speaking, he was suddenly pushed into the river by the black boss whose hands and feet were bound. Hey! Hill yelled in shock, and then became furious, and wanted to say hello to Falca, you bastard, in front of my majestic shield. Agent, directly execute a person? Are there any laws? Morning. Bucky had just watched the nanny who was taking little Sky to school disappear into the corner of the corridor, and before turning around, he saw the door of the neighbor's house open. Maria Hill, with disheveled hair and slightly dark circles under her eyes, glared at Bucky angrily. Welcome, please come in, please feel free. Bucky looked at Hill, who had finished staring at himself, and went straight into his house from his side, and was politely lonely to the air. A lot of anger, get up angry or the day has come. Would you like some breakfast? Coffee? Hey, is there something on my face? Seeing that Hill didn't speak, but just stared at himself, Bucky looked helpless. Obviously he was just scaring the black boss last night, but he didn't really kill her in the end, so why did he look like Hill was very angry and the consequences would be serious? But think about it, from Hill's point of view, he thought he was going to do something important, but he was fooled into illegally breaking into a residence, intentionally hurting people, robbing, hijacking, intimidating, and illegally interrogating. Even if the victims are all scumbags who can't get rid of their hatred by shooting, but, as a defender of the law, a guardian of justice, and a law enforcement officer who fights against crime, she has become a lawbreaker, and the one who committed the crime is herself. Agent Hill returned home in the middle of the night, tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep at all. No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't get over the difficulty in his heart. It wasn't long before he found the culprit, so he wanted to talk to Bucky. But when he saw that Bucky seemed to be all right, and ignored her critical gaze, he hummed a ditty to make her breakfast. His breath stuck in his throat, and he forgot what he wanted to say for a while. Bucky is really in a good mood. On the trip last night, I completed the daily reward task, and this time I defeated a total of more than a dozen enemies, and they were still gunmen judged by the system to be dangerous. System information. Complete the daily rewards, get 600 experience points, and get a random item box, normal, *2. Open the random item box. Get white common components 1-5. Open the random item box. Get white common components 5, green refined components 5. What's more, Bucky has also identified a new target, a bigger fish. It's not right to do that. After a busy night, Hill still moved his knife and fork, smelling the aroma of blueberry pancakes and cream. But while eating, she also said the same sentence. What's wrong? Did that person not deserve to be punished, or did the world become worse after he was punished? But But that's not the right way and means. You are disrupting law and order. You are not a policeman, let alone a judge. You are also abusing lynching. If I were a cop, or a judge, would I still be able to do that? Would that gang get busted last night? You are sophistry, there is always another way. Instead of thinking of other ways, but not necessarily thinking of it, why not use that time, do what I do, and do something practical? So you're right, and law and order is wrong. Is this your sophistry? Law and order are right, but there are places they can't control, and I have the ability to control the places they can't control, so I will take care of it. In fact, right or wrong, I really haven't thought much about it. If you say it's wrong, then it's wrong, but so what? I'll continue to do it. But, at this time, Hill was only a 20-year-old young man. At the time of his stubbornness, he just thought that the justice in his heart was the only justice. Don't let it go. The pancakes are all smashed by you. Here, bacon and eggs, go catch up on sleep after eating, and then we have to go out. I'm not a child. Seeing Bucky not only coaxing her, not arguing with her, but also ending the topic domineeringly, not only that, but also continue to order her. Hill blushed with anger, biting the fried bacon with gritted teeth, taking it as someone to relieve his hatred. However, the fact is that Hill still has to listen to Bucky, because her mission is to follow Bucky, and she can't restrict his actions. On the streets of Brooklyn, Bucky drove a silver-gray Ford Mustang, not very fast, wandering aimlessly. Hill was sitting in the co-pilot, no one spoke, only the car radio was playing melodious music, and the noisy urban environment outside seemed like two worlds. Naturally, Hill wouldn't change her opinion just because of Bucky's mouthful. In fact, she was still holding her breath and always wanted to find an opportunity to quarrel with Bucky. Bucky ignored Hill, anyway, as long as he didn't feel embarrassed. The atmosphere would only embarrass others. Look over there. However, just when Hill couldn't help finding fault, Bucky slowed down and pointed out the window on Hill's side. Hill was taken aback, and looked in the direction of the finger. Then I saw in the alley between two residential buildings, two African-American boys who looked to be 16 or 17 years old and dressed in fancy clothes, were surrounded by two Caucasian boys who were also about the same age. Hill saw it, just in time to see the African-American boy handing a small plastic bag of tobacco leaves to the white boy. Not far from here, there is a school. I believe they are all students in the school. Hearing this, Hill fell silent for a moment. It's not that she doesn't know, nor has she seen it before, she just hasn't been touched like this before. Look, there's another one over there. The car was only 600 meters away, and next to the dumpster of the donut shop, an African-American boy was selling a very small and thin paper package to a pair of African-American little sisters. You see, although what we did yesterday was not glorious, at least there are less than a dozen similar scenes on the street today. Perhaps, because of this, some people have avoided touching this kind of stuff just out of curiosity, or maybe, someone avoids ODING because of it and gets into a car accident, hits innocent people, or maybe. I know what you want to say, don't say any more. Hill held back her words, some of which were rebuttals, but for some reason, she suddenly didn't want to say anything. Let's see then. Bucky took Hill to continue walking. The route of the car was within the jurisdiction of the largest African-American gang in Brooklyn that he asked about last night. The closer to the core area, the more gang members, or bring a few teenage boys like before, and distribute the goods to them, or sell them by themselves, or in groups of 3 or 4, staring at the few standing in the distance the enchanting woman on the street. They are all very hardworking, not idlers. Walking and watching all the way, there is no need for Bucky to say anything. Hill also fell into silent mode again. I don't want to convince you right away, but I will definitely stick to my approach, and you can't stop me, so I think, at least let you be less resistant, but if you still can't get over it, then if it's a level, I can also say hello to Howard. No, but. Night. A silver-gray Ford Mustang on the streets of Brooklyn again. Or Bucky and Maria Hill. The two were not wearing black combat uniforms like last time. Instead, both of them are in fashionable casual clothes, well dressed, and it looks like they are out at night looking for a place to hang out. And the two actually went to a nightclub, arm in arm, like a pair of lovers going out to have fun, not to mention, the man is talented and the woman is beautiful, jackals and leopards. In short, when the two of them appeared, they were quite eye-catching. Fortunately, as soon as you enter the nightclub, with the violent music and the constantly flashing colorful lights, you won't be able to tell who is who if you don't stick in. The two went to the dance floor for a while, ordered 2 glasses of wine, and sat in a relatively remote booth. Hill jumped for a while, his face was a little reddish, and his cold face was a little more seductive. But Bucky didn't care to appreciate it, but set his eyes on the special passage not far away, guarded by two big muscular black brothers. Just now, there was a tall and thin black guy with a goatee, who was rather earthy, but dressed in trendy clothes, followed by a short, stout guy with a big beard, and a chubby guy with a big beard, accompanied by a tall, thin guy with a round cut. The handsome white guy passed over the big muscle guard and entered the passage. "Cooperate with me later, I need a little distraction to divert my attention." Bucky moved closer to Hill, as if flirting, and whispered in her ear. "He he he." Xie Yi seemed to be very happy, with a smile on his face, but what he said was, "Remember what we said. I know that you can't use drastic means, especially you can't kill people, you can't cause chaos, you can't cause collateral damage, and you can't hurt innocent people. As long as you do what you say, I will fully cooperate with you." "Of course." Bucky drank the vodka in the glass, motioned to Hill, but didn't go to the bar to refill, but disappeared into the crowd in a flash. "Here we go again. Sit down and rest for a while." Not only didn't cool down, but Hill felt a little hotter, saw Bucky acting like a ghost again, and suddenly disappeared. No matter how you look at it, it feels amazing. If she has the unique skill of stealth, and then goes to carry out secret missions. Well, she still kind of wants to be 007 instead of becoming 07's assistant girl. Hey, how can this guy compare to James Bond? My super agent is a follower, and I get angry when I think about it. Fortunately, Bucky's figure appeared again soon, not far from the two big muscular security guards, with his back to them. Seeing this, Hill took out a lighter from his bag, lit his glass of vodka, poured a little on the foot of the neighbor seat, and then covered the glass with his hand, and the light blue flame went out. "Hey, be careful, it's on fire," Hill screamed and stepped back quickly. "Oh. I buy karma. Fire. Fight the fire." A neighbor's chair caught fire and soon there was a commotion. But soon an attendant took the fire hydrant and put out the fire. A false alarm, such a trivial matter, could not scare the men and women who went to the nightclub to have fun, and the atmosphere quickly recovered. But no one noticed, at the moment when the attention of the two big muscle fighters looking at the special passage was drawn away. The electronic combination lock on the door behind the two of them automatically unlocked with a beeping sound. Bucky, like a civet, dexterously jumped up and appeared behind the two of them silently. In an instant, he opened the door and let people in. With a beep, the electronic lock locked, as if nothing had happened. Closing the door will also block the violent music and noisy human voices from the door. Bucky moved quickly against the base of the wall, lurking in the direction of the few people who had been targeted with the prosthetic eye just now, and those people who had been moving for 20 seconds. But he stopped when he saw a camera. I used a target location on the camera, then hacked in, then dodged and hid in the storage room. The prosthetic eye switches to the image captured by the camera, and then continuously switches among several cameras around the target location lock. Just outside a door, I saw the short, stout and fat bearded servants just now. The sense of confidentiality is quite strong, that is to say, the tall, thin, handsome white guy that Kevin's boss met had an unusual identity. Who will it be? Bucky wanted to go and see, but this time there was no one to attract the attention of the two gatekeepers. And it's not a stealth game where no one alive sees me, it's perfect. But well, Bucky's cyberpunk system is as powerful as ever, as punk as always. If you connect the camera with a prosthetic eye, you can control the camera and use the function of the prosthetic eye. Use the target to lock the two attendants, and then lock the companions of the two, that is, Boss Kevin and the handsome white man, and then lock the electronic equipment on the two of them. And it happened that both of them had mobile phones. Boss Kevin, who was chatting with the handsome white man, didn't know. The small screen on the small brick phone in his arms suddenly lit up, and then the microphone was taken over. "My brother Billy, the business has been very good recently, and I need more goods." Bucky's prosthetic ear received such a sound from the connected phone microphone. It turned out that the handsome white guy was called Billy. "Our goods are the most sought after. Everyone needs more goods, but good things are never cheap, and they are the most rare, so Kevin, you know. Brother Billy, you haven't even given the amount we agreed on. I just want you to fulfill the agreement." When Boss Kevin heard Billy's flamboyant excuse, his voice sank. "It's just a verbal agreement. Moreover, we didn't say we were dead at the beginning, but we said that the situation will change at any time, and this time I am here to tell you that the situation has changed. Billy, if you do this, I'm very disappointed and I will be very unhappy. You said your goods are in short supply. But believe it or not, let me tell you that your goods will soon be unsaleable. In Brooklyn, there is no such thing as mine." Aloud, No one dares to sell your goods. Really? Are you sure? As long as you say a word? In other words, it will be fine without you letting go? Damn fuck, you threatened me. How come? I just want to say, how can I keep you from talking? Next, there was another verbal confrontation between the two. But Bucky could tell that the harsh words of the two of them were just necessary occasional words. They both seemed to need each other, and cooperation was a win-win situation. Billy had the goods, and Kevin controlled the market. The two of them didn't want to fall out for the time being. But it seems that Billy's tone. Bucky vaguely feels that this Billy is not a good stubble, but looks like a ruthless person. It has to be said that after hearing the conversation between the two, Bucky became more interested in Billy. Because Kevin is a coward, without Kevin, there will be James, or Russell, and he is just a second-hand dealer. The root cause still lies in Billy, who is in charge of the source of goods. So, change the target again, from getting Kevin to getting Billy? Hey! What are you doing? Keep your hands clean. What? You bastard dare to touch my girl, you want to die. After the minor disturbance of the fire incident in the nightclub, there was another molestation incident. A chick thought that the man behind her was taking advantage of her, and her boyfriend quit. It turned out that the man also had a girl, with a violent thump. This naturally attracted the attention of most people, including the handsome white guy Billy who came out of the dedicated passage just now, and the boss's fat bearded bodyguard who followed him. No one noticed that the door of the special passage that had just been closed was opened a little again, and Bucky's figure jumped out with a whoosh. Then, as if nothing happened, he blended into the crowd of spectators, and quietly approached the real culprit, who was also beside Maria Hill. Gone. Where to? Hill followed Bucky and asked a little curiously. At this time, she was no longer the cool and dull person she was before. After all, she was a young man, and she was somewhat excited after playing 2 pranks in a row. It's changed, that pretty boy. Well, he's quite handsome. What's his background? It's not clear yet, but he is the one who holds the supply. The two followed them all the way, left the nightclub, and drove after the boy's black Buick SUV. Is it really handsome? I don't think so, so I'll be polite. While talking, Bucky suddenly turned his face to look at Hill, and asked coolly. Yeah, such a pretty face is rare. In such a dim environment, in fact, Hill couldn't see the other person's face clearly at all, but he answered Bucky with a look of fascination. Really? Who is a little bit more handsome than him? Am I a little more handsome than I think? Gee, someone feels too good about himself. The two bickered all the way and followed all the way. Wait to enter the battle, how can I cooperate with you? But as he said that, Hill suddenly sighed and asked. Fight? I didn't say I wanted to fight. I'm going to follow him first and find out his situation. Are you serious? What's wrong? Bucky, who was originally puzzled, checked Hill's eyes and realized that maybe something was really wrong. Didn't you really find out that the other party has found out that someone is following him, so you go around in circles, not to get rid of it but to delay time, to gather your subordinates, and finally bring us to the ambush? Then of course I think so. Bucky is a little unsure if Hill is testing himself, or if he's being serious. But when Hill covered his face, Bucky suddenly reacted. I was careless. Although he inherited all the combat skills of the original Winter Soldier. But in fact, he did not inherit all the combat experience of the Winter Soldier, and many memories were really broken or lost. And there is not a lot of actual combat to digest and absorb. Fighting a few local ruffians, robbers who robbed convenience stores and so on, compared with the Winter Soldier's combat experience, it is simply a child's playhouse. Another point is that Bucky's missions all have a characteristic, leaving no survivors or witnesses. In other words, even though the original Winter Soldier was good at covert tracking, there was no need for it. Anyway, they would not leave any survivors. It made no difference if the other party found out or not. Even if they found out, the other party would still be unable to escape the pursuit of the Winter Soldier. They just put in more unnecessary resistance and then were killed by the Winter Soldier. The result was no different. So Bucky followed the Winter Soldier's habit, and thought it was perfect, if Hill hadn't pointed it out. Doesn't seem to make a difference either. Bucky thought again, if you find it, you will find it. The Winter Soldier is not afraid, but the enhanced version of this cheat will be afraid? It's just a reckless word. Since the other party chooses to fight with me, then let's fight. However, Bucky's pretentious answer made Hill cover his face again. Every time when she felt that Bucky was finally reliable, this guy would do this to her. There's a gun in the storage compartment. Hold it for self-defense. Don't get out of the car when the time comes. If you really start to fight, you can hide behind the car and support me depending on the situation. Are you really going to fight? It's too late to retreat now. Although Hill said so, she somewhat understood Bucky's temper. She opened the storage compartment in front of her while speaking, took out the Makarov pistol inside, checked the magazine, loaded the pistol, and put an extra magazine goes into the boot. Although Bucky was always dissuaded, Hill was somewhat excited with the gun. You said that the other party found us, and now we are withdrawing, and then he remembers the license plate number and finds us at home. What about you? Where's your weapon? Isn't there 3 chapters in our agreement? It's not a last resort, we can't kill people. This is not a joke, do you really think you are Bateman? Actually, I can play better than him. I can't tell you, just follow you. Hill covered his face again, and now he can only hope that Bucky can be as amazing as before, and the other party is not a vicious gangster, just find some thugs to deal with her and Bucky. Bucky is really like what he said, he doesn't want to kill people. It's not about restraining as much as possible, and not killing what must be killed. It's the soul of an ordinary person in the Eastern Kingdom, and it's not a veteran who suffered from PTSD on the battlefield. Who wants to eat chicken every day in reality, and suddenly the living person is splashed with blood. The first person killed in this world, Bucky can't forget even now, it's not a nightmare, but he can clearly remember every detail of that time, and it's vivid when he thinks about it. Killed twice, once by Hydra, and once by Tutu Frank's family villains. If you don't kill him, beat him up, it's almost over, and Bucky's strength, coupled with the Winter Soldier's understanding of the human body. Letting that person live, in a sense, is no less punishing than killing him. So, just look at the pretty boy with the white face. If he really came up and shot Bucky with a gun, if he wanted to die, Bucky wouldn't be able to stop him, could he? The little boy in front led Bucky around in circles for more than half an hour. Even Bucky had already noticed that something was wrong. He was provocative. However, he seemed to be finally ready, and started driving in one direction, eventually driving to a container area in the Brooklyn docks. It's a good place. After killing it, mix it with cement, and it will sink immediately. Xiaobai parked the car next to 2 SUVs of the same model, and the 2 SUVs turned on their headlights, causing Hill to block his face with his arms. But Bucky just closed his right eye, and his left prosthetic eye was adjusted to anti-glare mode. Only 8 people? Who do you look down on? I don't think I've ever met you. Tell me, who are you and which agency sent you? CIA? FBI? DIA? Who would send a rookie like you? Dock, container area. Leaving Maria Hill to stay in the car, Bucky got out of the car alone, and swaggered up to the tall, thin, pretty, fair-faced Billy. Behind the little boy, 2 black Buick SUVs opened the doors on both sides, and the heavily armed personnel pointed their assault rifles at Bucky. But when he saw Bucky walking over like he didn't know what he was going to face, he suddenly felt that it was a bit of a fuss. This is clearly a rookie, right? Still confident, in fact, there are other people following? McGee, pay attention to your surroundings. Little boy Billy said something into the walkie-talkie first, and then took out his pistol, but the hand holding the gun was not raised, but stuck to his waist, and did not approach Bucky. His voice gradually became colder. Come on. I have limited time and even more limited patience. Would you believe me if I said, I've taken a fancy to you and want to invite you to dinner? Bucky smiled indifferently, not to mention, with his beautiful face in this prosperous age, coupled with the other party's pretty face that is a little bit worse than him, if there is a rotten woman present, he must scream on the spot, let him date. Let him date. No. But Billy obviously didn't like this one, and he was very angry and very wrong. His fair face flushed instantly, and his expression of, yeah. Disgusting. It's just a word. Disgusting. Followed by an extremely angry smile. It seems that if you don't suffer a little, you don't know the seriousness of the problem. Hey, there's something to talk about, let's talk. How about watching a movie if you don't want to eat? It's a pity that Bucky is the Winter Soldier, not the talker next door. In a word, it's a mess. Boom. Billy let out a grin, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Fortunately, Billy didn't want to take Bucky's life directly, and the gun was pressed down, aiming at Bucky's thigh. Gudong. Fortunately, Bucky doesn't need his kindness either. Kneeling on the ground with a thud, to be precise, his knees hit the ground, and the one who fell to the ground with his whole body limp like mud was not Bucky, but Billy, who was covered in electric arcs. In the eyes of others, Bucky's figure disappeared instantly. Bang bang bang. The moment Bucky sprinted, he also snatched Billy's pistol. While sprinting at high speed, he shot 3 times in a row, hitting the shoulders of 3 of Billy's subordinates with precision. And before the screams came out, Bucky had already rushed to the door of Insuv. After modification, the prosthetic gorilla arm is stronger than the original steel unicorn arm, but when it is not pushed too hard, the car door closes with a whistling sound as if being kicked suddenly, allowing the person behind the door to the person's head hit the car hard. Boom. Bucky shot with his right hand and hit another shoulder. Then the left hand was on the roof of the car, and the huge force made him fly up. Easily crossed the roof, flew a kick, and hit the head of a person on the other side of the car. Following the push of the unicorn arm, the whole person flew out, kicked the person in the other car, and kicked back into the car directly. Boom. He kicked and fired another shot at the same time. Everything was in the midst of ups and downs. Hill, who was about to rush out of the car when he heard the gunshot, just opened the car door and stepped on the ground with both feet. The battle here is over. Hill used the car door as a cover, and through the car window, he saw that the other side was lying on the ground, only Bucky was standing alone. He was stunned for a moment, and the gun almost fell to the ground. What's the situation? Why is it that she didn't see anything, didn't even react, and the battle was over? What the hell is that guy doing? Bucky's action didn't actually end, but when he hit the last person, he glanced at a container not far away, and there was a flash of electricity over there. It was Billy who reminded McGee around him. He was a sniper observing the situation there. Like everyone else, he was locked on by Bucky's target positioning, with his prosthetic eye. Take it away with one shot. Then make up the knife, one kick at a time, kicking those who were shot in the shoulders. All of them fainted. Not only because some people not only did not give up resistance, but also some people wanted to raise a gun with the other hand. Bucky was so angry that he took care of such a person. And even if he gave up resistance, Bucky's cyberpunk system also stipulated that the hostile target must be hit to at least the level of unconsciousness before it will be judged as defeated and have experience points. That's the end. How the hell did you do it? Johnny, who are you? Hill was beckoned here by Bucky. Looking at the crowd, he couldn't accept it, and even doubted Bucky's identity again. Even the most powerful SHIELD Special Forces fighter can't do this at all. How did he do it? I'll talk to you later. Bucky didn't care, as he felt that he was a Winter Soldier, and there was really no need to hide it from the future Commander Hill. But let's clean up the mess now. You call SHIELD. And ask them to deal with it. By the way, check the origins of this group of people. They don't look like good people at first glance. That's right. All of these require a special license in the beautiful country, otherwise it is an illegal automatic rifle, and it doesn't look like a decent person. Hearing this, Hill felt a little refreshed. This is not a gangster who is still in the civilian category. From this point of view, it is an illegal militant. This is her participation. Well, she participated in the onlookers, but she also contributed before Gelly defeated the group. What are you again? Hill himself had a mobile phone issued by SHIELD, and was about to take it out when he saw Bucky carrying the pretty boy Billy on his shoulder. Of course I have to interrogate myself first, but I want to ask him, shoot him if he disagrees, and just be so jealous that I am more handsome than him. No. This is Kai Guoguo's hatred. Well, whoever this guy is, he's always been so confusing. Hill sighed like this again, every time he thought this guy was serious. But she was also curious, when did such a person come to New York, dare to bring so many gun-toting thugs here so arrogantly, when SHIELD was disbanded? She wants to represent SHIELD. Check it out. By the way, this guy is more important. Should we find a safer place, the safe house of SHIELD? And borrow one? Hey, don't use this guy is really unreliable. Look at me, okay? I haven't been in New York for 2 weeks, okay? Poof. Billy felt a chill on his face. Yo-Yo woke up and found that he had been splashed with cold water. Hi. Then he was in severe pain all over his body, and even had a splitting headache. He couldn't lift up any strength, his eyes slowly focused, and he saw the face that made him hate and annoyed. Look at you. Why is this so? Admit the reality. Admit that I am more handsome than you. It will make you feel better. Pooh. Tell me, Billy, what's your full name? What do you do? Bill pointed the gun at Bucky before. At this time, their identities were reversed. Bucky was still standing upright as before, but Billy was tied to the chair by thick hemp ropes. You do not know who I am. Billy was angry, vigilant, and suspicious before, but after listening to Bucky's question, his face instantly turned into a face of bewilderment. You bastard, you don't even know who I am, so you followed me all the way, even fought with each other, and finally kidnapped me here? Are you mentally ill? Yes, I used to be number 17 cyber psychopath in Night City. After understanding Billy's eyes, Bucky complained silently to himself. Long nights, sleepless nights. Let's talk. Billy, what's your full name? No comment. Why did you bother me? Where did I mess with you? It seems that if you don't give you some trouble, you won't realize the seriousness of the problem. Bah. Go ahead. Facing Bucky's intimidation, Billy's performance showed a disdain. He didn't even have a decent torture device. Who would you scare with his bare hands? Bucky just stared at it. You are looking down on people. If you don't really show you something, you don't know why cyber is punk. It's just that. With a sullen face, he carried the chair over, but instead of making a gesture to fight, he put down the chair instead and sat down, with his hands resting on the back of the chair, as if he changed his face and changed into a smile again. Just kidding. How can I be willing to hit such a pretty face? Billy was taken aback for a moment, and subconsciously wanted to, bah. Disgusting. Base. But he saw that the other party pulled out the field knife from his waist, twirled the blade a few times with his dexterous fingers, pinched the handle of the knife, and the cold blade stuck to his carefully maintained face. Why don't I help you peel off the whole face and keep it well? When I hit you again, it won't hurt you. How about this? Don't worry, my hand is steady and the knife is fast. When the time comes, your face will still be, it will be just as beautiful. You. As the blade of the field knife scraped Billy's face like a razor, his eyes of disdain, contempt, and disgust suddenly became terrified, and his head was thrown back desperately. Do not stop. Well, don't stop, I get it. Bucky was still smiling, but it turned into a devilish smile in Billy's eyes, and the movements of his hands suddenly accelerated. Swish swish. Billy saw the black light flickering in front of his eyes, his face turned cold again and again, and his mentality collapsed in an instant. Stop. Stop it. Bastard. Don't touch my face. But Bucky ignored him, and concentrated on shaving his beard until the stubble on his face was shaved clean, then he nodded in satisfaction. And Billy has long been like a little fresh meat played by 18 brothers in a goblin game. Bastard. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. I went, and I actually cried. Bucky really didn't expect that just scaring this guy would have such a good effect. Hey, I heard that some people who haven't really realized their own orientation subconsciously reject or even discriminate against them. Weren't you angry with embarrassment before? Seeing Billy acting like this, Bucky felt a little goosebumps all over his body, and the "yeah, disgusting" emoji was returned in full. Kill me if you have the ability. Kill me directly. Now that you know that you care so much about your face, you won't naively think that I'll let you off so easily, right? You'd better accept the reality quickly and do it honestly. Billy yelled and cursed for a while, but he had vented enough. He stared at Bucky with incomparable resentment, and asked viciously, "What do you want to know?" Cough. It wasn't that Bucky cleared his throat and wanted to ask a question, but that there was a light cough from behind Bucky. Hold on. Bucky gestured to wait a moment, and just as Billy breathed out, he suddenly felt severe pain all over his body. The electric arc flashed across his body, and he passed away foaming and twitching. Is there a result? It was Maria Hill who coughed lightly. She had already removed her makeup and put on the uniform of a SHIELD agent, holding a fax in her hand. Well, this man's name is Billy Russo. He used to be a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. After leaving the Army, he opened a security company called Anvil. A gray or black operation. By the way, Phil told you, this guy used to be Frank Custer's comrade in arms? It turned out, it really was him. As soon as Bucky heard Billy Russo, he immediately reacted. No wonder this guy cares about his face so much. Isn't this the Billy Flowerboy in the American TV series, Punisher, that he watched a few episodes before time travel? Frank Castor's former comrade in arms. Because of an operation under the command of the CIA, something went wrong, which caused Frank to retire from the Army. Bucky didn't know the specific reason, and he didn't watch the drama carefully. But I also know that Billy has a lot to do with that incident. He seems to be Frank's friend, but in the end he was found to be the villain boss, and he was treated badly by Frank. In the end, Frank used broken glass to smear his face. What a coincidence, this product fell into his hands like this. Then why did Billy come to New York with so many gunmen? It's not very clear. I only know that he came here more than half a year ago, and quickly occupied half of the laundry detergent market in New York. His security company is simply a cover, keeping a large number of gunmen, just to protect his real business. What about you? Did you ask anything? Well, he cares about his pretty face very much, and it will explode if he scratches his skin. What kind of news is this? It seems to be useful. Hill subconsciously wanted to express his lack of speech to Bucky's ignorance, but after thinking about it, he had found a weakness that could be targeted. Then you continue the interrogation? But Bucky waved his hand. No need, let's get ready. What to prepare? Prepare for battle. He actually has a locator on his body. Someone should come to rescue him soon. Hill heard and frowned. Where? I obviously searched. Bucky shrugged. Heels, underwear, teeth, under the skin, it's all possible, right? Hill was a little angry. Why didn't you remind me earlier? No need, the locator is not turned on. How can we see who can be lured out? Do you want to fish? Then tell me earlier. It's too late to say it now, let's prepare. 5 subs parked on the road outside a small fruit forest in the outskirts of New Jersey. One after another, well-armed and well-trained soldiers in combat uniforms and night vision goggles got off the vehicle. 17 or 18 soldiers moved silently towards the 2-story single-family house next to the fruit forest. They didn't know that there was a pair of eyes in the residential house and in the fruit forest, and they had already spotted them in the first place. It's not that they surrounded the residence, but that the people in the residence are quietly collecting the net. Boss. Boss. Feeling a shaking, Billy Russo woke up slowly. Although he still had a splitting headache, he didn't feel weak like the last time he woke up. He quickly regained consciousness and saw a guy in a camouflage combat uniform and a camouflage hood shaking him in front of him. You are. Sir, we have located you and come to rescue you. There is still fighting outside, so I will let you go. Only then did Billy notice the constant gunshots outside, and then he felt his body loosen, and the rope that bound him was cut open with a claw knife by the person who came to rescue him. Sir, we have to leave as soon as possible. The other party has already prepared. This is an ambush. Our situation is not very good. Dog. When Billy heard this, he couldn't care less. Even if he lost all his men, he could still spend money to hire them. The most important thing that the beautiful country lacks is a soldier who feels at a loss and has no sense of existence after returning to the city. As long as he can run away, that's fine. He followed the men who came to rescue him, and left from behind. He heard the gunshots more clearly when he went out the door. Hey handsome Billy dude, where are you going? Billy didn't run very far, when he heard a voice that made him tremble all over, and then he saw the figure that made him want to shatter his body into pieces, flashing and moving at that unimaginable speed, breaking through the firepower net, rushed towards him. Sir, go away. I'll stop him for you, it is good. Billy didn't act like a good brother, live together and die together, share blessings and share hardships, like when he recruited soldiers from him, so he ran in another direction without hesitation. Run into the woods, through the woods, there's our car. Ah. Hearing the shouts of his loyal men, Billy couldn't help turning his head, and saw that his men had been shot in the left arm, but they were still fighting back. And that damn guy was also shot, but he just rolled on the ground and stood up again. This made his soul tremble, and he used all his strength to run wildly without looking back. Even when he heard the scream of that nasty guy who seemed to have been shot again, he didn't dare to look back. Running all the way into the woods, passing through the woods, finding the car, getting in the car and stepping on the gas, Billy didn't dare to breathe a sigh of relief. Just, really ran away. Billy, who was driving the car, still couldn't believe that all this was true. Boom. There was a sudden shock, and Billy shuddered in fright. From the rearview mirror, he saw a black SUV chasing after him. Boom. The car accelerated and hit Billy's car again. The two cars were parallel, and Billy saw that hideous face with a flashing smile. FCKU. Billy was angry from the heart, and the evil turned to the guts. He turned the steering wheel hard, and the car turned back. Boom. Another violent impact. Just this time, the speed of the opponent's car slowed down. From the rearview mirror, Billy saw the damn guy's car. The front hood smoked, the engine exploded and broke down. FCKU. Serve it right. Eat shit. Stupid. Billy turned his head and viciously gestured his middle finger. The resentment accumulated all night finally dissipated. But he didn't know that in the broken down car, Bucky opened the door and got out of the car, looked at the taillights of the car and smiled slightly. And at this moment, above Bucky's head, a helicopter roared past, following Billy's car in the sky. Not long after, a masked man in combat uniform drove Bucky's silver-gray Mustang and chased him. The two exchanged, and Bucky drove away. On the other side of the residence, not long after Bucky left, the two sides in the exchange of fire stopped their ostentatious mutual shooting. The man who had saved Billy and fell in a pool of blood got up as if nothing had happened, took off his hood, revealing a sympathetic hairline, and then commanded the people at the scene to lift out the unconscious people one by one from the dwelling. People, throw it in the car and drive away. On Coney Island, the southernmost tip of Brooklyn, the pier. Billy parked the car and boarded a moored yacht with ease. The fully armed security personnel on the yacht turned a blind eye to him, and he went straight to the open-air platform at the rear with a straight face, and sat down on the leather sofa in front of the coffee table. Sitting on the opposite sofa was a middle-aged white man with a fat head and a dark eye. He was dressed in a tailored high-end suit, with a cigar in his left hand and a glass of champagne in his right. Yep, he's like some future king of secret agents, with a glass prosthetic eye in his left eye. Brother Billy, why did you come back alone? Where are the people who went to rescue you? How do I know? It won't be easy for me to escape, William. The middle-aged white man named William couldn't help frowning upon hearing this. Who the hell is troubling us? How do I know? Crazy horse-riding man. Crazy. Billy picked up the champagne on the tables and drank it vigorously. When he thought of that hideous figure, his chest was scorched with evil fire. This is not over. I will gather another group of people and kill them back. Don't be impulsive. We just lost a little manpower, but the goods are fine, so business is important. We must at least first. No. I can't bear this breath. William wanted to dissuade, but Billy interrupted viciously. Billy, this is business. No, this is a personal grievance. William, haven't I done enough for the business? Call brothers, open up the market, work hard outside. Which one is not me? I even got Frank's whole family set up for you. That's my brother, but to avenge your blindness. So stop talking to me about business. This time I am qualified for myself. Billy's resentment and grievances erupted wildly, but he said so confidently that he would kill his good brother's family. Well, since you insist on this, taking the initiative to find out who the other party is also a choice, but this time the loss must be recorded in your share. Whatever you want. HMM. Seeing that William had been persuaded, Billy finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was thinking about how to find someone, so he turned back and grabbed that nasty guy. He wanted to peel off that disgusting face alive and sew it on the pig's butt. But at this moment, he heard the sound of splashing into the water. Then fell into silence. Briefly, a breath of silence. Then there was a commotion, and he faintly heard the sound of impact and the sound of silenced pistols. No, someone invaded. In Billy's mind, a lingering figure immediately appeared, with a flashing smile, and he couldn't help shivering. Gun. Give me a gun. Billy trembled like an electric shock, jumped up suddenly, and jumped towards the guard not far away. Puff puff. But at this moment, several gunshots were fired, and blood sprayed from the guard's head. Only then did William realize that he wanted to draw his gun in a flustered and clumsy manner. Puff. What? But blood burst out of his right shoulder, he screamed, and fell to the ground. This is, Johnny. Pretty face, do you miss me? However, although Billy shivered subconsciously, he didn't look at Bucky, who suddenly appeared, dripping all over his body. Instead, looking to the other side, there was another figure dripping wet. Frank. Billy, boy, you're fine, very fine. Why are you here? On the deck at the stern of the yacht, Frank Castor, who was like a beast, stared at Billy Russo standing blankly with bloodshot eyes, his former comrade in arms, a good brother who was born and died. Before, Frank received a call from Bucky asking him about Billy. He was only surprised, regretful, and a little suspicious. How could a good brother who used to be a good brother turn into a criminal? But now he has to face the youngest daughter who suffers from autism due to excessive fright, and the son whose intelligence is permanently damaged due to untimely treatment, whose IQ will remain around the age of 8 to 10, and the blood feud of his wife. Even if his good brother had an accident, Frank didn't care much about it. But it was Bucky who saved his son's life who asked him for help. It can even be said that without Bucky, his 2 children would not have survived, the benefactor of their family. Frank can only come to repay the favor, and it's not really repaying the favor, after all, this is the matter of his former friend in need. Then he watched as Bucky directed and acted out a scene in which Billy escaped and bugged him. Then, he heard the conversation that made his heart stop for a moment and almost collapsed. Frank is really blind. That's why he takes that greedy bastard as his brother. For CIA agent William Rollins, who smuggled laundry detergent and smuggled some smuggled goods back then, and killed several of their brothers, he wanted to kill his whole family for that stinky money. It is good. Very good. Why, Billy? The friendship that was born and died together made Frank maintain his last sanity. It's Rollins. Rollins forced me. Puff puff. Hearing Billy's sophistry, Frank felt that his face was so ugly and disgusting, he gritted his teeth, with bulging veins on his forehead, and shot Rollins 3 times without hesitation. Rollins fell in a pool of blood, making Billy's heart go cold. Yes, I did it. I did it for money. But what's wrong with doing it for money? Frank, I blame you for all of this. If you were willing to cooperate back then, none of the brothers would die, and they would all get rich together. This is all your fault. Faced with Frank's staring eyes, Billy's inner dissatisfaction, grievance, anger, fear, and perhaps a little bit of remorse made him finally hysterical. That's right, it's all my fault. I shouldn't be blind. I can't see what kind of trash you are. Then why don't you die? Billy roared and rushed towards Frank hysterically. What? Frank threw away the pistol and rushed back like a beast. The two are like two wolves, biting and fighting in the most primitive way. Alas. Bucky let out a silent sigh at Frank's ill-fated fate, but he didn't mean to help. This was his personal grievance, his blood feud, and he could only avenge it himself, and he could only kill Billy, or be beaten to death by Billy. As a result, Frank, who was furious, finally defeated Billy, who had been tortured several times in one night. Boom. The brutal fight between the two beasts came to an end when Frank grabbed Billy's head with both hands and smashed him face down on the glass coffee table, crushing the thick coffee table. Well, Frank also tugged at Billy's hair, and made a few small frictions with the broken glass without saying a word. Either it's serious, or Billy's handsome face has become bloody, and he can go straight to a horror movie. Kill me. Frank, kill me. Billy was spitting blood, and said dying. He knew his face was finished, he didn't want to see him now, he just wanted to die. No, after finishing slapping Billy's face, Frank pulled out the field knife and put it on his neck, but panting like a wild animal for a while, he put the knife back into its sheath. Kill me. Kill me. That's too cheap for you, Billy. I want you to live, to wake up every day, to see your disgusting face, and to remember who you were. To live and die for this. Remember, this is all I gave you. Do not. Billy let out a desperate roar, but was kicked hard by Frank and passed out. After Frank finished all this, he seemed to have lost his soul. So what about revenge? Let the enemy pay with blood. So what if life is worse than death? The love is still separated forever, and all he is left with is endless regret and sadness. Bucky just walked over and patted Frank on the shoulder, but didn't speak. Thanks, Johnny. I thought he was here to repay a favor, but unexpectedly he owed a favor, but Frank was really disheartened, unable to cheer up at all, and unwilling to think about anything. Bucky Barnes, Johnny is just a pseudonym. Hey, Bucky, that Bucky. What are you doing? Frank was surprised when Bucky said his name, but he was also a little surprised, since there are so many magical things, it would not be more strange to be the former World War I hero. But at this moment, he saw that Bucky walked up to Billy and bowed slightly, and suddenly punched him on the spine below the neck. There was an indescribable sound of bone shattering, and Billy, who was in a coma, even opened his eyes for a while, and then passed out with blood spurting from his mouth and nose. Oh, I think after he wakes up, he definitely doesn't want to see his face, and he might even think about it. Wouldn't he be unable to do what you asked just now? Like this, he will be able to lie in bed every day from now on, wake up, come here and see his face in the mirror on the ceiling. Frank looked at Bucky with a serious face, opened his mouth, and wanted to say thank you, but he couldn't say anything. Sure enough, history does not record everything about a person. Who knew Captain America's friend, the hero of World War I, would be such a vicious guy? But in fact, Bucky just didn't want to leave troubles. Frank is done, but Bucky will not let a villain who has provoked him so many times, and then the face he cares about the most is disfigured. He must be mentally abnormal, and the villain who is 3 times more blackened will be so intact survived. Billy could be crazy, but he had to lie on the bed and slowly go crazy in his fantasy, then he could go as crazy as he wanted. And if he didn't mix in the last move, Billy wouldn't be considered Bucky's defeat. The system doesn't give experience, and he won't let go of a boss with a name and surname. Let's go. I never want to see this man again, I've had enough. Frank looked at his former brother, current enemy, and his own blood-stained hands. He just wanted to get out of here, but he didn't know how to escape the nightmare called reality. Frank's grievances are understood, but the matter is not over. He left the yacht, and Bucky didn't either. Instead, before the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. arrived and there was no interruption, searched the boss's lair to see if he could find anything useful. He also wanted to find out who Billy's partner William was. Also. Sure enough, in the captain's cabin, a safe was found. Although it is a mechanical combination lock, it is not difficult for Bucky. It can't be cracked by hacking, but it doesn't need to be broken, and it's over. Bucky held the wires of the desk lamp in one hand, and touched the safe with the other hand. In an instant, the safe was wrapped in red and blue neon blocks. The safe is large and strong, but it is still made of ordinary materials and ordinary craftsmanship. The system judges that it is still a white ordinary item, and it is still a sundry. It still cannot escape the fate of being broken down into a pile of tatters. But after taking a breath, the dismantling was completed, and Bucky got a few common item components, and the safe turned into tatters like it had been soaked in seawater for hundreds of years. With a light tug on Bucky, the cabinet door was torn off, revealing the undamaged contents of the cabinet. A ledger, a small black velvet bag, stacks of $100 bills, and a key with a nameplate. There were not many banknotes, only a dozen or so. Bucky stuffed them directly into his bosom, opened the small bag and took a look, but it caught his eye. Inside was a blood-red ruby, the size of a cut pigeon egg. Bucky fiddled with it a few times, then put it in his pocket together with the ledger and keys. After scanning with the prosthetic eye, there was nothing suspicious. Bucky was about to leave, but when he returned to the deck, he was taken aback for a moment. He knew that someone would arrive soon, and this was an operation with the assistance of S.H.I.E.L.D. Unexpectedly, it wasn't just people from S.H.I.E.L.D. who came. In addition to the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who were already nearby, there were also 3 subs, which suddenly appeared without any warning. After being intercepted by the S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel, all the guys in black suits got out of the car, and they even took out their guns to fight with them. The S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel confronted each other. However, it seemed that there was no real intention to fight. The leader, a white-haired old man, stepped out in style, wanting to talk to the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. also dispatched the person in charge of the scene, and both of them faced the gun points of the opposing personnel, talking and laughing happily in the middle. Seeing that he couldn't fight, Bucky quietly returned to the boat, found a plastic bag to put the books and money in, left the boat and dived into the water, held his breath and dived for 7 or 8 minutes, and left the area directly. Hey, Brother Fury, what is the origin of that group? Because it was found that Billy was related to Frank, Nick Fury, who cared about his old comrades in arms, was personally responsible for this operation, but he was the commander-in-chief and didn't show up just now. It's from the CIA. Knowing that Billy's accomplice is William Rawlings, we are not surprised that this happened. Because he was a senior CIA agent, and because he deliberately framed Frank and his comrades who did not cooperate in an operation for his own selfish desires, resulting in the sacrifice of many soldiers. Afterwards, Frank blinded him in one eye, and the CIA began to investigate him because of this. He defected and fled, becoming a real laundry detergent dealer. The CIA seems to have been tracking him, but just what? Bucky heard that Fury was a little vague, and suddenly thought of the many film and television works he had watched and the games he had played before time travel. It's not that the pigs have to wait until they are fattened up before killing them? After all, it's not because we need to collect enough evidence to bring him to court. Fury didn't make a clear judgment. This is something that has been proved freely, but everyone's views are also tacit. It won't be a problem, will it? Of course not. The CIA has no domestic law enforcement powers, and they will not have any information about this operation. Fury is very confident about this. Regardless of whether it is domestic or overseas, S.H.I.E.L.D. is the king of agents, and the CIA is at most gold if not bronze. Speaking of this operation, did you find anything of value? So Fury is more concerned about whether Bucky found something and took it away. A ledger with detailed records of transactions between William Rawlins and several of the largest gangs in Brooklyn, as well as some encrypted information. Send someone to fetch it. Bucky also directly provided the account book. It is useless for him to keep this thing. Why would he need such evidence to show those gangsters, so that they have nothing to say and feel ashamed? His steel unicorn arm is enough to do this. As for the bank key, Bucky was a little curious about what it was, and he was on his way to the bank on the nameplate, so he had to see what was inside before talking. Here are the ledgers. Can you arrange a police raid, or joint law enforcement or something? After all, my family is in Brooklyn, and I hope it's cleaner. Bucky fights crimes by himself in order to earn experience points, but if he wants crimes to be dealt with quickly and severely, he still has to rely on law enforcement. After getting a positive answer from Fury and chatting a few more words about Frank's situation, Bucky hung up the call. Bank. Billy Stone, safe 1117. PLZ, follow me. Bucky finished looking through the ledger. It was not just a ledger, it was divided into several parts, some of which were his aliases, where he hid those things. Please feel free. The bank staff took Bucky to a small separate room with a locked metal box on the table. Hey, the old boy really has a lot of money. Bucky used the key to open the safe, and inside were several passports and certificates, several wads of banknotes such as US$, British pounds, and marks. The amount was not much, just for emergency, and a Glock pistol. These are not the key point. The key point is a stack of bearer bonds, all of which belong to European banks. According to the current exchange rate, it can be worth more than $130 million. And that's just one of the places William Rollins hid his money. Not to mention that he still has a source of supply that is hitting the entire Brooklyn laundry detergent market. If Bucky hadn't met him early, maybe he would dominate Brooklyn's underground world and become one of the supervillains of the Punisher in the future. Bucky sighed slightly, collected the bonds and dollars, and left the bank. Then hand over the ledger to the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this operation will come to an end. But Bucky didn't go home directly, but drove to the river near the Brooklyn Bridge, and found a deserted place to sit for a while. He wants to count the gains of this operation first. Cash plus bearer bonds totaled more than $150 million. Bucky, who was an ordinary person in his previous life, was really a little excited. But the harvest is more than that.